Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and In Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
All right, folks, we are back, and man, once again, Jimmy, we've got some incredible people on here, man, and doing some research on our next guest, I was like, wow, man, it's pretty cool that we got him. Although, I never had the pleasure of crossing paths with him. I've definitely seen his work and definitely know his name. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Outlaw, Joel Deaton.
Well, hey guys, it's great to be on. And thank you for inviting me. How's everything going today?
Man, it's going all right, man. Been to the doctor one time today, and just hanging out. I don't know. Jimmy sounds like he's a little under the weather too. So
yeah, if I mute myself, y'all don't hear me for a minute. I'm coughing my brains out, but I would not miss this opportunity with Joel Deaton. So we're going to do it anyway.
Okay.
So Joel, man, just 30 minutes ago, I clicked it on YouTube and I was watching Joel Deaton versus Tommy Wildfire Rich, and Tommy is somebody that I got a lot of history with, personally and in the ring, and it just made me think. Did you and Tommy hang out a lot? Because I know me and Tommy hung out a lot.
Well, you know what? Yes. I mean, me and Tommy, we go way back, to the early 80s when I first met Tommy. I guess it's probably, actually around 79 is when I met Tommy. When I first went over from Lars, who trained me, over to Ole over there to do some TVs, and I met Tommy over there actually probably around 1979. Yeah. And through the years, we hung out, and I, me and Tommy, we've always been friends. We've worked each other, gosh, I couldn't even tell you how many times through the years, and we've always had chemistry and never had any problems. And I think a lot of Tommy, and somebody say something about, he's a good dude, man.
Yeah, man. I honestly owe Tommy a lot, man. Me and Jamie wrestled him and Doug Gilbert for a while. That kind of put us on the map in Memphis, as a tag team. And Tommy taught us a lot. But then outside the ring, a lot of shenanigans went on with Tommy. And Tommy used to rib me unmercifully, man. But all in good fun.
Yeah, Tommy, once he gets going, it's hard to slow down. He's funny.
Absolutely. We had an angle where we brought my mom and his mom, Peggy, into the whole angle and everything. It was good stuff. It was real good stuff. Jimmy, I know that you have an incredible heart on right now because Joel is a Mid-Atlantic guy and you love that stuff so much. So I'm going to, normally I kind of lead for the first little bit. I'm going to let you, I know you've got so much to ask, Joel, and I'm going to hot tag you right now. Bam, quickly back into the hot tag.
Well, aside from having an incredible heart-on, by the way, sorry, Joel. No, but so I read something online. Obviously, you had your start with Lars, and then there was the World League Wrestling, and it said something about a horrible tour of the West Indies. What's that all about?
Well, actually, it wasn't, really that horrible. I mean, it was great. Really, because Lars, Lars he's a really smart guy, and he's from St. Paul, Minnesota up there, and Minnesota guy, went to college and played ball and all that, and wrestled.
Yeah.
And anyway, what happened was after Lars had got us trained, fairly well. Over about a 6 to 8 month time frame, and I mean, he put us through the ringer. As far as he didn't even teach us how to lock up for 2 months. But anyway, he got a little TV going there in Atlanta, out of Smyrna, Georgia. I think it was on Channel 36, which later was turned into Channel 69. With Joe Pedicino had his show on.
Yeah,
but he booked the tour. What he did was this island down that I had never even heard of, the island of Antigua.
Yeah.
The island down there, they only had 3 hours of TV each day on whatever channel that they had pushing out their signal to. And there was only 3 hours of TV a day on that island.
Wow.
And he somehow got our little TV show out of Smyrna on for 1 hour each week, 8 weeks leading to us coming down there.
Wow.
So the people down there, I don't even think they had ever even heard of wrestling.
Yeah.
Or, of any kind.
Yeah.
Because, so we hopped on a plane and we flew down to, I think it was like St. John or St. Croix or St. Vincent or one of them islands down in the West Indies. And we started island hopping on this, gosh, man, it had to be a 1940 or 30-something plane, propeller plane. And when you got up in the air in it, I mean, it felt like he was on a merry-go-round or something. And you could see right up into the cockpit, and it was scary. And we were just floating along, to these islands. And when we got down to Antigua, they had this hotel, and it was actually a fairly decent hotel. And this, of course, was in 1979. And, well, actually, it might have been late 78. But anyway, and so he had a ring that was built out of wood, and all it had was it didn't have any padding whatsoever. It just had a tarp over wood, and he had it out in the middle of this field. And so when the people started coming in, and I don't even know how much he charged, or no, I still got some of that Antiguan money though, by the way. But and these people, there wasn't any bleachers or any seats or nothing. There was like a little hillside or a bank that led around in a big circle, fairly long circle, oval type circle around where he had that ring set up. And so we were there, and of course the people were real nice. Of course, they were all island people, and they were nice to us and all. But so we had 2 nights of wrestling to start off with there, and that we had a guy that Lars had helped train in Smyrna that was actually Antiguan himself, and his name was Charles Buffon. Now I don't know if you might can Google that and find him. Yeah. And what he looked like, almost identical as far as body wise and look wise as Rocky Johnson. He was built up good, and he looked good. He was a nice guy, but he was green. But we all were at that point. But as far as me and Hoss, the guy that I broke in, Hoss Deaton, the guy I broke in with, that we became a brother team. But so anyway, just to kind of move the story along a little bit, the first night we went out there, and we was in a tag match against Charles Buffon and some other wrestler. I think his name was Levi Jones, and he was a little young dude that had been on the junior Olympic team in amateur, so he was pretty athletic and a good guy. And so me and Hoss were the heels, of course, and so we went out there and had our little match, and we started healing, and the people, they kind of got real quiet. And I don't know if anybody, I'm sure you guys know about that quiet heat. Oh yeah. Yeah. When you start getting that quiet heat, then it's serious.
Yeah.
and so we went out there and jumped Charles and just beat him down, and then people started, kind of leaving off the side of the bank hillway and kind of easing a little bit closer and closer and closer. And we didn't have there was security there, but they didn't really know nothing about wrestling either. But, Lawrence had kind of, conveyed to them, hey, you got to walk us to and from the ring stuff. And so we actually had to cut the match short because we were both getting worried. And we got through it and got back to the building that we came out of. And I don't know if it was a schoolhouse or something kind of building dressing rooms were in. But the next night, so we have a return match.
Did y'all go over in that first match as heels? Did you screw them?
We got disqualified.
Okay, all right.
We beat Charles up and threw the referee out the ring and everything you think of.
Yeah.
And so, but we coming back the next night in a rematch with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so Charles and them, they go out to the ring first, and they're out there, him and Levi, and they're jumping around, waving crowd and getting the cheers. And Charles was, like I said, he was an antique one, so he was over, even though I don't know if the people knew him or not, but they knew he was an antique one.
Yeah.
And so when it comes time for us to come out of the dressing room, these two armed guards with rifles are standing in the doorway. And so me and Hoss come out down the hall to go out into the field, to the ring, and they turn and get shoulder to shoulder with their rifles up, and they will not let us out of the door to go to the ring because they thinking we're going to beat Charles up again. And I mean, they stood there and stood their ground, and we tried to go around them and tried to actually put my hands on one of them to try to move him out of the way, and they wasn't budging. So finally, one of the other promoters, Lars was actually the promoter, him and a friend of his, they came out and kind of, got them guards to move and let us out. And we went on out to the ring, and let me tell you, we turned into baby faces real quick. We didn't do any kind of hit. We flew for them all over that ring. And we didn't do anything illegal just about, because man, it was too afraid to.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But and by the way, Antigua was a beautiful island, and all those islands down there are. And we later on went on down into Barbados and Trinidad and all down in there. But but yeah, it was just I was 79. I was 22 years old. So I mean, I ain't never been nowhere, and so it was, and I'm just so happy. I took a lot of pictures, and I still have them, from all that stuff. But we really enjoyed it, and it was first time ever leaving the country and going anywhere like that or doing anything like that. And afterwards, the matches were over. These couple of guys come and got us and took us through the jungle down, and it must have been at least a mile and a half. And I'm thinking, my God, they're going to hang us out here in this jungle somewhere. But they took us down to some little building. It was a wood building set up not far off the beach, and they had a big disco speaker DJ system set up out on the beach, and they were playing disco music and all kind of music loud out there on that beach, and people, all them native Antiguans were out there dancing and having a good time. And I mean, and they were really friendly, and they showed us the best time.
That's cool.
It really was. It's something I'll always remember. And and then they after we got through, they took us back. We had to go back through the jungle on a path that was hardly 3 feet wide. Yeah. And I'm thinking the jaguar or something's going to jump on me the whole time. Because it was pitch black dark. And but they got us back to the hotel, and I think we stayed in Antigua about 3 or 4 days before we left and went to another island. But
yeah,
that was, basically some of the story from being down there in Antigua.
Yeah. The different countries, man, is so weird when you're, because I was like you when I went to Puerto Rico, I was 19 years old, and it wasn't, it was 1994, so what, 5, 6, 7 years before or after Brody got stabbed, and so the whole time down there, I'm thinking, okay, really watch yourself. But yeah, I did a thing down there and had to run from the island. But anyway, it's a whole thing.
Well, you know what? I saw Frank Bruiser, about 2 weeks working for Joe Pedicino. I saw him about 2 weeks before that happened, before I went to Japan on one of my tours. And, me and Hoss went to Puerto Rico in, I think it was 81. But we worked for a guy named Centron, who was running opposition to Carlos.
All right.
And I didn't know who Carlos Colon was. I didn't know who he was. I barely knew what Puerto Rico was or where it was. And anyway, he brought us over there and he put us up in a little condo, and I think he paid us like $300 a week, and we ran 4 shows a week. Yeah. And we stayed over there about 5 months. And you know what? And this is funny. One night he comes to me and he says, "Joe, tonight you cut." And I said, "What?" He said, "Tonight you cut." And I didn't know the first thing about blading or getting juice or nothing like that.
Yeah.
But then it dawned on me what he was talking about, and I said, "No, I'm not going to cut myself." I mean, I was young, green. I didn't know nothing about making no blades and cutting myself or nothing. Yeah. And so I just refused. And then he took his hands and started slapping them back together. He said, "Okay, we finished the booking then." I said, "Well, fine. Send my ass the hell back home." And he did.
So did you learn after that? Did you figure like, okay, I should have, or I shouldn't have, or you're just like, fuck it, I'm glad I didn't?
Well, in retrospect, I probably should have figured out a way and did it. But, Lars had never, really got into that part of the business with us. And I, before that, I mean, I had been, like out in San Antonio for Joe Blanchard, Tully's dad, working in Southwest Championship Wrestling, and Hussein the Butcher was one of the mainstays out there, and he, he bladed a lot and other people and stuff, but I still had never done it up to that point, and so it wasn't something that was done like on a nightly basis, like, in the Florida territory or Georgia or even probably Memphis or some other places.
Yeah. So,
I wasn't real big on it. And, in my whole career, which started in late 78, I bladed probably a couple of dozen times, and that's about it, man.
Really?
If I couldn't get the story told and the match over just on my ability, I didn't never think we needed blood. I mean, blood was a big part of the business in those days. But
yeah. Hell, even when I got in the early '90s, very late '80s, it was just a thing in Memphis, man. And me and you talked about Jamie earlier. I mean, he usually took the heat, and I'd get the hot tag, but I was always the one to get color. And I kind of, back in the day, they used to call it queer for the blade. And I guess I kind of developed that where, man, and then I always heard people say, red equals green, all that kind of stuff, and for us, it did, and I don't know, I guess just growing up on it and watching it, and I don't know, made me felt cool or something. I don't know.
You know what? And it's funny, I've, of course, been around, I've had countless matches with Abdullah, and I did get, there's a match on YouTube of me and him over in Japan where I got some color for him. And he looked at me after I got that color, and he said, God, what'd you do? Put some fingernail polish or something on you? Because I didn't get but a little bit. And, you know, and what's funny, Abby used to sit on the bus, and we used to always play head-up poker in the back of the bus, the tour bus over there all the time. But anyway, and Abby, we used to sit there, and we'd be playing head-up, and he'd look at me, and he'd say, I got to cut. I'd say, what? He'd say, I got to cut. I said, what are you talking about? He'd say, I got to cut. And I said, well, Abdullah, we're about to get to the town. And, you know, because he played it every night.
Yeah.
And it was just funny to hear him sit there and say, I got to cut. I think he was addicted to it.
Yeah. Didn't he? And I never worked him. I was just around him. But didn't he wore them on his fingers, right? And like when he touched you, he'd cut you, wouldn't he?
Yeah. If he wasn't careful, if he'd grab you a wrist or try to throw you into the turnbuckle or the ropes or something, and, you know, sometimes it'd nick you.
Yeah.
You know, but he was pretty professional. I mean, my God, the thousands of times he cut himself, he should be a pro at it, you know. But yeah, there was, you know, a time or two he nicked me a little bit with that blade on his finger.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this. I noticed something about you, and this was like when I was watching that Tommy Rich match with you and him. It reminded me of seeing you as a younger kid. It looks like you got a tear in your pec. How did that happen?
Well, you know what? What happened was with that, and let me say that, you know, my father, he was a professional pro football player with the Detroit Lions and All-American at South Carolina, and a big track discus thrower and everything else in college. And he was an athlete. That's where I got my athletic genes was from my dad. But somehow or another, and I never really even noticed it till I started becoming a teenager and all. And let me tell you, what happened to my left pec was I was born without one.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And you know, I have the top pec, the little top pec, and if you look close, you can see that I have a little, like over where the bottom pec's supposed to be. You can see a little indentation of a muscle there, and that's your top pec.
Right.
And I had that, but I was born without a left pec.
Oh shit!
So when I would do bench presses and work out and thing, you know, it make me look disproportional because my right pec, of course, would build up and start getting big, but it would just make everything look even more deformed kind of looking. And, you know, I had a complex about that. And that's one of the reasons I think when Dusty gave me the Thunderfoot gimmick, he told me he wanted me to have everything covered up because I worked in there in Mid-Atlantic for like almost 3 years, you know, as Joel Deaton before I got that Thunderfoot gimmick. And I never wore, you know, I just wore regular trunks and no shirt, like, you know, and I don't know, I guess, you know, people noticed it, but you know, nobody ever screamed out from the crowd and you know, made any smart ass remarks about it or nothing to me my whole career, really. But it is noticeable. And that is the story on why my chest.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'd never heard of that before. That I always thought you tore it because I'd seen, you know, Paul Orndorff and.
Well, you know what? That's what I would lie and say. You know, because I did have some of the boys through the years say something about it, and I just say, "Oh well, I tore it over in Puerto Rico and never got it fixed." That's funny. And just to shut them up, you know.
Speaking of the Thunderfoot thing, I always loved, and Jimmy knows this, and the listeners know this. I love mask gimmicks. I love mask gimmicks, and I especially love the loaded boot gimmick because now that I think about it, like, you know, older and plus being in the business and stuff, it's like, what did the fans really think was happening there? You stomp the toe. And what kind of contraption did you think they thought you had in there?
Well, I'll tell you, the story about Thunderfoot and how it came about real quick. And so, like I said, after I came into Jim Crockett Promotions in '83, and I think we came in there from working for Leroy McGuirk out of Tulsa out there, the Tri-State Wrestling. When we had Skandor Akbar as our manager. But anyway, we called Dory. It was a committee thing in the Carolinas going on at the time. Dory and I don't know, Paul Jones. There were several bookers like a booking at the time. Each one of them had a different state: South Carolina, Virginia, and so forth, West Virginia. And so Dusty calls me in his office one day, and he says, Joel, he says, you've been working hard, doing good for us, and blah blah blah. And he said, we want to give you a promotion. We're gonna promote from within, if you will.
If you will.
And we think you've been doing a good job for us, and we want to give you promotion. He said, what I want you to do is I want you to get a mask and get a suit, and cover everything, your legs, your chest, your arm, cover everything up. Mm-hmm. And I want you to do the old Inferno's gimmick where you have a loaded boot and a built-up boot, and I didn't want to sound like a complete dumbass to Dusty in there because I was thinking, and he said, and we're going to let JJ be your manager, get you started with this thing. And I said, well, okay. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, well, who in the hell were Infernos, and what in the hell does he mean by built-up boot? And he even stood up out of his chair behind the desk and hopped and like he was loading his tennis shoe and said, you load your boot like the old Infernos, and then you kick them with them, And I said, well, okay. So I got JJ off to the side and said, tell me who the hell the Infernos were and how do I do this? And so JJ he laughed and he kind of explained to me what was going on, what Dusty wanted. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, I called K&H out there.
K&H.
They used to make the outfits.
I remember that was
stuff. Yeah,
very old. And I told him what I wanted. Yeah. And then I called Ash and had him make me a boot. And I told him, I said I wanted about 3.5 to 4 inches on the right boot. The sole. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, regular size. And he said, okay. And that's what he sent me and everything. And so, I think for the whole outfit, the boots and everything, it's like $400 or $500. And hell, I wasn't making a lot of money right
in there at that time. And to tell you the truth, the territory was down when I first went in there in '83.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had to pay for it out of my pocket, and and I ended up having about 7 or 8 different colored, outfits, Thunderfoot outfits and stuff. Yeah, and I wish I had a better mask design, but hell, I didn't know anything about freaking masks or nothing. Then I never really 100% enjoyed the mask. You said you liked the mask, but me, I always liked just working with no mask, and there's another story about that later on.
Well, I mean, anyway. the thing is, I just thought it looked cool. I was always a fan of like comic books and superheroes and stuff like that, and so the mask to me was just cool looking. But I understand, and I have worked in one before, as far as wrestling goes, it's better to have your face exposed so you can sell and all that kind of stuff. But that's why I liked it, and just the whole gimmick thing. I miss the days of, and I put this over on the show, I don't know, Jimmy, was it last week or something, about that kid Logan Paul on WWE. He finished a match with a chain. I was like, holy shit, WWE just used the chain. Are you kidding me? And they don't do that. All the old school gimmicks, man.
Yeah, they're so scared of that stuff nowadays that they just, everybody's so lawsuit oriented about, getting hurt or something happened, that they just cut out so much stuff. To me, it's not even really I mean, I don't want to get into that, but I mean, I just don't enjoy today's product near as much as I did the old stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the thing is, I think the problem is that I feel like this generation is like, oh, well, everybody knows we're working, so, let's do whatever, and I don't believe that's, yes, they know we're working, but I promise you, and I'm sure you would agree with me, that if you're good enough, you can still work them. I mean, if it's for a couple of minutes or whatever, you can still work them.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that, but I think it goes all back to the basics and the fundamentals and who you were trained with by, and for the life of me, and I don't mean to put down today's wrestling too far, and this is all just my opinion, but some of that stuff they do, and the punches they throw. My God, are you kidding me?
They're terrible.
Bob Cook. Me and Bob had a kind of similar career. We were always kind of above average workers, and we could, with a little help, probably went a lot further, both of us, than we did. Even though I'm very proud of the career I did have. Yeah. But, Bob just throws, to me, the best punch in the business. Jerry Lawler throws a great punch. And there were many.
Thank you. Yeah, Jerry Lawler.
Many people through the years that threw good punches. And Bob was an outstanding worker, and his punches were just fantastic. You cannot see through them.
No, they're great.
And if they're sold like properly, then it looks like you just knocked the guys out. And
and that's the thing. They all throw the forearm now, and I mean, I'm not a fan of that. I mean, whatever. I guess it's you can relate it to the punch is illegal, but they don't think about that. They just can't throw a punch, so they throw the forearm or whatnot.
Right.
Nobody can. If you had to work Memphis and you couldn't throw a punch, you weren't getting over. That's just straight up.
Well, I mean, you know what? The fans don't get as much credit as they should. They're not stupid.
Right.
No.
I mean, they can see, and that's what my mindset when I went out there is. I don't want these people to sit out there and holler, "Oh, that was fake," or "Did you see that?" or something like. Everything I did, I wanted them people to believe.
Yeah.
And so if I couldn't do something and make it believable, I didn't even do it.
Yeah. And you want your opponent, you want to sell his shit so good that they believe that too. That's the other thing is I'm going out thinking, I want to do my stuff, but I also want to make you look good so that I look good. And I think that's a lost part of it.
Yes, I believe that too. And I'll tell you something else. Of course, most of the time when you're working someone, you've seen his work before, or, and if there's things that they do that are not that believable, and I get out there with them and they throw something at me and I know that it looked bad or something, then if I do sell it, they're lucky. And,
yeah.
And because I always, like to put it in there, stuff across the chest and across the back. And I mean, you can pound somebody and not hurt them across the chest and back. And that's the way I used to love to, throw the opponent outside the ring and get out there and pound on him right in front of the people sitting at ringside, and just, you could look on their faces and tell they believed what you were doing.
Exactly.
And that just made, it makes you feel good to know you're doing your job right when you can look out there and see, have people out there crying on the front row and calling you every kind of son of a bitch in the book. And it's just, that kind of thing that inspired me to work harder and to do the best I could to get over what I was out there, to do.
Yeah, exactly. I love that, man, because I think that's the reason that when I broke in and everything, that a lot of the older guys like accepted me, because I took on that mentality, and the reason why some of the newer people don't understand what I'm trying to tell them. You know what I mean? But Jimmy, are you with us?
I'm still here, brother.
Out? Okay, all right.
I'm here.
So I know you got some spots written down, so go ahead.
So obviously you've done the Thunderfoot gimmick for Crockett. You work with Gene Ligon. Then, of course, David Isley takes that over. But what I really enjoyed, and I've recently found this because I've recently gotten to know guys like Tommy Angel and David Isley, and I found on YouTube Nelson Royal's Atlantic Coast Wrestling. And this is a hidden gem, y'all. And this is where you can see the Outlaw Deaton brothers. And brother, y'all are cutting killer promos. Y'all are getting good matches on that show. I'm a big fan of that. What do you think maybe didn't catch on? Was it the end of the territories did it? Or what do you think didn't catch on for Nelson's promotion?
Well, you know what? I don't know, because when me and Hoss first went in there, you know, he had some pretty good talent going on up there, and his TV production was pretty good. And Rick, what was the announcer's name? Rick, his name was Rick. I can see his face. I can't call his last name, but he was a good announcer. And,
yes.
And I, you know, one thing, if you heard, you know, me and Hoss doing some interviews, Hoss had a gift for gab, and he could make you believe his interview. I don't know if you heard, you know, you say you heard a couple of our interviews, but Hoss was just exceptional.
Right.
On the microphone, and he could make you believe what he was saying. And, you know, I did okay. And I always through some of these other promotions, you know, like when we were young and kind of green and around in these different territories, you know, of course, the older, you know, wrestlers and the vets, you know, they did most of that kind of stuff, and we'd get a little bit of airtime as far as doing interviews and stuff. But I always, you know, I had a pretty decent gift for gab, and I could talk, and there's some stuff on YouTube of me doing interviews, but Hoss was just off the chain with his interviews.
Yeah, he was great.
He was really good, and it's a shame somebody didn't take him, because he was a big 6'6", 300-pounder. I mean, he was a Stan Hansen type.
Right. What do you think that was? What do you think that was? Why didn't...
Well, you know, I think what hurt him the most was when we first left Tulsa for Tri-State up there for Leroy and came into Crockett Land. You know, they tagged us up, you know, as the Deaton brothers and stuff, but they never would give us any kind of. We were just strictly underneath, and Hoss was an amateur heavyweight champ for the state of Georgia in high school, and also wrestled in college. And he couldn't get it through his head that, you know, hey, this pro wrestling, you know, it's a work, you know. I mean, and he thought because he could kick somebody's ass in about 2 minutes that we were working against, that he didn't like having to sell and put them over. You know, and he just got kind of I don't know the word. He just kind of made him. He didn't like having. He felt like we should have been used better than we were at the time that we were brought into Crockett Land, and so he just basically left.
Yeah,
quit. You know, and I stayed, and I, you know, the first probably 4 or 5 months I was in the territory in Crockett Land. We were wrestling in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and I had a match with this guy called Vinny Valentino. I don't know if you remember that name, but
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Anyway, we had a little single match. It was underneath, first, second, third match, something. And we got out there and wrestled around, and the match was going okay. And then he tried to put a abdominal stretch on me or something, and we both got off balance and kind of fell with our legs tangled up. And somehow, when I fell, my leg was still hooked into his, and it fractured my ankle.
Oh,
and I was like, damn. And so, you know, I rolled out of the ring, and I couldn't get up and really walk, and I was, you know, like, you know, limping and trying to make it back to the dressing room, and they helped me back to the dressing room, and I can't remember who I rode to the town with. But I do remember this. You know, Wahoo was sitting in there when they brought me in there, and I sat down there in the chair in the dressing room and kind of, you know, put my leg out, was kind of looking at it, and it had already swelling. And so Wahoo said, "Well, hey, kid, you can ride back with me." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, how is it?" And I said, "Well, it's hurting like hell." And so he reaches over there in his bag and takes a pill bottle out and throws 3 or 4 pills. See, I didn't know about pills and shit like that back then. Yeah. And he handed me 2 or 3 pills of some kind. He said, "Here, kid, take these." And I said, "Well, okay." And so he helped me out to the car and put me in his car. And so we went right to the first store. And he went in there and bought a whole bag of ice, came out and put it on my ankle and taped it around my ankle, a whole bag. And it's about a 2.5 hour ride back to Charlotte from there. And so we ride on back, you know, to Charlotte. And so he takes me to the emergency room at one of the hospitals there, you know, to go in and get it x-rayed and stuff. And by the time we got there, I was so buzzed out from whatever it was he gave me. When them people got me in there and took that tape off my ankle with that bag of ice, which had about almost all melted by then, my ankle was almost frostbit.
Wow.
And I couldn't even feel it because of whatever it was he gave me, you know. And anyway, I got another great Wahoo story, but I'll tell that'd have to happen in Florida. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of how I got started in Mid-Atlantic. And then after a while, that committee looking, you know, like it was Dory Funk and Ernie Ladd and I think what's the guy that had plane crash down in Florida with Bobby Shane, Gary Hart. He was booking it. He had one of the states, and anyway.
Gary Hart is one of Jimmy's idols because Jimmy got into the business and did some outlaw stuff, and he modeled himself after Gary Hart.
Gary was a great manager.
Yeah.
And he always brought in, you know, the kabukis and all these weird, you know, Kamalas and people like that. These weird, you know, Orientals and just different. I mean, he managed some regular guys too, but Gary had a great mind for the business, and he was, you know, he in my opinion, he was a, you know, he's in top 10 greatest managers, if not top 5. But,
I'd say that. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because about 50% of the guys we ask this question really don't like Gary. What do you think it is that's everybody's so split on him? What do you think?
On Gary Hart?
Yeah.
Well, because Gary, I'll tell you a funny story. Gary, he was total kayfabe, and he would even kayfabe the boys if they wasn't smartened up to his desire, or you know, and he was like very intelligent. And I tell you, when I first got in there, and Kabuki was in there in Mid-Atlantic, when you know, after a little while after I was in there, and Gary Hart was managing, and Kabuki was spitting that, you know, that
mist.
Fog. Shit, that mist that he would do and everything. And one time after they came back from a match, you know, Gary was sitting there, and I said, "Gary," I said, "how does he do that?" I said, "How does he wrestle out there for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then, you know, spit that mist out of his mouth like that? How does he keep it in his mouth all that time?" And he said, he had some surgically implanted like a hose that you mash and squirts water out. And he said that's how he spits it out, you know, because me being still about half marked to ask a stupid question like that. But that's what he told me. And I believed it.
Yeah.
You know, and I believed it. And I just said, "Oh, well, okay." But as far as people not liking Gary, you know, I never heard really anybody talk bad about Gary. And actually, when I first went into Charlotte and didn't have no money, and didn't have no place to stay. Well, Oliver Humperdinck told me I could come stay over at his apartment. He had a 4-bedroom apartment, and him and Gary Hart and Bob Orton Jr. and Tully was all stayed in that apartment, and I slept on the couch. And he let me stay there for 2 or 3 months, before I save up a little money to get out and get my own place. But no, I mean, I always got along with Gary and loved to sit around and listen to all those guys talk and tell stories and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we could talk to Joel Deaton without getting into All Japan, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, that's where we were going next.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you went the Wild Bunch with Billy Black, your All Japan run. I saw you work Giant Baba like 10 times over there, maybe more, but I just counted a few. That's the boss, right? So you're probably gonna bump big for that chop of his and stuff like that. How was it getting to Japan, and how was it working over there?
I tell you what, and this is the absolute truth. Well, first I'll tell you how I got to be able to go over there. Well, me and Gene, Dusty had made Gene Thunderfoot 2. Yeah. I was Thunderfoot 1 for about the first year with JJ. Me and JJ and Buddy Landell were like, that was who JJ was managing. And then, so they brought Gene in and made him Thunderfoot 2, and they had the Jim Crockett Memorial Tag Team Tournament coming up. And so we won the required matches to get into the tournament. And so we were going around and this and that. So we're in Baltimore, I think, for the blow-off. And Giant Baba had brought one of his young boys over there to be in the tournament, with everybody else. And so we walked. They had him off in another dressing room. He had his own place there. And so Nelson Royal took and me and Gene, we were dressed up in our Thunderfoot stuff and everything, and he brought us over there and introduced us to Baba. And so, and I was just like in awe. And so I introduced him. I said, "Nice to meet you, Mr. Baba." And I had talked to Nelson beforehand and asked him, well, what kind of money, should I ask, if he were to give me a tour over there or something. He said, well, normally, for, guys that aren't big stars and stuff, is like $1,500 a week. And so, and this was in 87. So I thought, well, shit, $1,500 a week, that ain't bad if he agrees to it. But anyway, so, get with our introductions and all. And I said, Mr. Baba, could you please book me in on a tour to Japan to come and wrestle for you, sir, and I think this was like in maybe January, late January, February or something, and he got his book out, and he started looking through his book, and he thumbed through it a minute, and then he looked up and said, you come to Japan in August. And I thought to myself, August? I said, damn, that's like 6 or 7 months away. You can't do it no sooner than that. But I didn't say that. And I said, well, August, okay. I didn't know that I was damn lucky that he even booked me, right? What do I want to sound like complaining about not getting over there quicker than that? But, so I said, oh, okay. Well, thank you, sir. He said, how much? You guarantee? And I said, well, I said, is $1,500 okay? He said, yes, this is okay. And I said, well, thank you, sir. And then
you should have went for 2 or 3 grand.
Thank Nelson for getting me in and getting me booked on and everything. And so, the first, so August rolled around and we got on the plane in Atlanta and we flew to LA, and he had a Japanese guy out there that would meet us, and he would give us our visas to go over, in Japan and work as an entertainer. And we would, so we would get the visas and everything, and then we'd get on the plane and I think it's 10.5 hours over there and like 11.5 back. But anyway, that's another story. So I'm going to tell you, you know, when we first got over there, you know, of course Baba put us up in a nice 4-star hotel, and it, you know, right in Tokyo. You know, Tokyo's the biggest city in the world, 20 million people in a 30-mile radius, and you know, it's like a giant ant farm. I mean, people come up out of the underground, you know, like ants, you know, in subways, and they have big old shopping centers underground, and you just wouldn't believe what else underground over there. But anyway, so you fly in that night, and then the next day you have, you know, we usually had our first match in Corkin Hall over there the first day of next day after you get there of the tour. Yeah. And that was my first time wrestling in Corkin Hall, which is such a great venue. And so, you know, I didn't really know. I had wrestled Antonio Inoki over in Hawaii. Matter of fact, me and Hoss wrestled him and Andre over in the Blaisdell Arena in Honolulu back when Lars was promoting over there for Leah Mavia.
Yeah.
The Rock's grandmother over there back in '85. And we came back and wrestled in the Aloha Stadium where they play the Pro Bowl every year, you know, that same year over there. But anyway, that's another story too. And I got so many from over there. But anyway, so, you know, so we went and I forgot, I think the first night, for some reason, I mean, I'm sure you guys know Stan Hansen's repertoire over in Japan.
Yeah.
But Baba put me tagging. Oh, and before when he told me and gave me, you know, told me I was booked to come to Japan that August, he told me, he said, but don't wear a mask or uniform. He said, don't bring none of that shit over. Just regular, you know, boots and tights. And
be Joel.
You know, and I said, hell yeah. I want it that way anyway. So we go out the first night, and I'm in a tag with Stan. And so, you know, and Stan is like a 300-pound bull that never gets tired.
Yeah.
And if you can't keep up with him, then, you know, you won't be his partner for very long. Yeah. And I remember the first night out there, and we're out there and we're tagging back and forth, and I'm going wide open trying to keep up and do my best. And I got somebody got me down in the hole, and I can't remember who it was. And so I laid there in the hole for about, I didn't think it was very long, you know, maybe 30 seconds or something. I was moving around trying to counter it or whatever, and he still had me in the hole. Well, Stan comes in the ring and stomps me in the head about 3 or 4 times and says, "Get up and fight, Deaton. Get up and fight." You know, so he didn't have to tell me more than that. And, you know, I hopped my ass up and got out of whatever hole I was they had me in and just followed his lead and fought my ass off. And I'm going to tell you, you know, from my tours after that, Baba tagged me and Stan up quite a bit over there. Yeah. You know, and I had over 500 matches over there and 23 tours. And when I went to Japan and kept going back, that told me why God made me a pro wrestler, was experiencing that culture and that I had never seen that kind of pro wrestling before. And it was one of those deals where Baba wanted you to, you know, produce a lot of offense, and he wanted you moving and fighting back and not like you having to do these 5-minute jobs and on TV and just, you know, with these so-called top stars over here. I don't care who you's in the ring with over there. He wanted you moving and fighting back, and there wasn't no laying down and putting over every little damn thing, overselling top guys' stuff. And you were on an even level kill with anybody you worked with over there. Yeah. And so, you know, he expected you to, you know, to no matter what level you might have been in over there, he wanted you out there fighting your best. And another thing is the fans. For some reason, I connected with those fans emotionally on a level over there. and they got behind me, even though I was an underdog a lot. And the win, lose, or draw, they always, gave me respect. When I first went,
why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Well, because they're sitting out there watching you.
Yeah.
And they all grow up on judo and sumo and karate and all these contact sports over there.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, if you don't give them something and lay your stuff in over there where they can hear it smack and pound, then they're going to sit on their hands. They're not going to give you any kind of admiration for anything you do.
Let me ask you this. What is your athletic background? Like as a kid, as a high schooler, college, whatever. What is your athletic background?
Well, I tell you what, when I was coming up, of course, I played recreation football program they had here in this town, Warner Robins, where I live here in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, great in that. And I was always a little big for my size, but I really excelled in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hitting, powering home runs over the pine trees in this little league field we played in. And I won all kind of more awards than anybody every year. And I was even recruited on a scholarship to Ole Miss. It was for football and baseball. The football team here, Warner Robins Demons, I don't know if you ever heard of those, but we've won the state championship, and they have even been the consensus national championship #1 high school team in the nation a couple of times here.
Wow.
And, yeah, the Warner Robins Demons, you look them up. But anyway,
what position did you play?
I played tight end on offense and linebacker on defense, and some defensive tackle. But so I went to Ole Miss and played a little bit, but I messed around and got I was in school out there about a year and a half, and I got my girlfriend pregnant, and this was in like 77, and so I had to make some money to support her and my young daughter, and so I left college, and that's when I came back to Atlanta and started working as a personal trainer in these places called European Health Spa. They were like a chain gym, like spa things. They had them all over, and that's where I met Lars, and that's how I got started and everything. But anyway, so I've been an athlete since I was old enough to throw a ball, and I've always been good. I even played, a lot of people don't know this, but I even played in Charlotte. They had a AA baseball team there for the Baltimore Orioles called the Charlotte O's.
Yeah.
And Frances Crockett, Jim and David Crockett's sister, was the general manager of that team. And they all heard how I was good in baseball and stuff, so I went out there and tried out for them a little and played a few preseason games with the Charlotte O's there in Charlotte.
Wow.
And then also over in Japan, Baba took us, I think it was on my second tour. Somebody pulled up at the hotel, and they got me out of my room and said, "Joe, come on." And so we went down, I got in the car, and they took us, on a little trip through Tokyo till we got in front of this big dome stadium, and I didn't even realize it was a Tokyo Dome at the time, but it was. And so they were having a charity baseball game between like these teams. Like there was a movie star team made up of like Japanese movie stars and
Jackie Chan, probably.
And you could go on YouTube and look that up, and there's a few highlights of that with me playing first base in that first game we played, and I was the only Gaijin or foreigner that played in that charity game. Just that first, there were 4 teams, and man, there was about 30,000 people in that damn stadium. And
wow!
And so I played, like first base that first game, and then I think it was '88 when the Rock and Roll Express were on the tour, same tour with me. They had another charity baseball game in the Tokyo Dome, and they asked them to come and play in it too, that game. And so we're sitting back in the dressing room, and Bob, they give us brand new uniforms, cleats, gloves, hats, everything. And Bobby says, Joe, come here. And he waved me over. And so I come over, and he had a baseball in his hand. And he took that baseball and tossed it over there to me. And I caught it, and he looked at me and said, Joe, tonight you pitcher. And this is fast pitch baseball now.
Right.
And I said, and I ain't touched a baseball in about 10 years, but, I was always good at baseball. So I just said, well, okay. And we went out there, and I got about 10 warm-up throws because this thing was televised all over Japan. And I still have the tape of that somewhere, and it's never been shown, and I can't believe it since 88. Somebody hasn't put that on YouTube.
Wow.
But I still have, because at the end of that tour, those guys that did that TV production came and brought me and Ricky and Robert all a DVD, but a VHS tape of that whole thing. I mean, they let us out of the tunnel with a marching band and cheerleaders and everything. It was really cool. And, we all played in it and had a great time. And I was out there on the mound pitching, and I did pretty good. It was 5 inning games, and I pitched 3 innings, and then he let one of the other Japanese kids come in there and pitch and play.
What's your best pitch?
Well, I think they clocked my fastball. Even out there not having played in all those years, I think I was throwing like 87, 88 then.
Holy cow, man. Wow.
I mean, and I still had a curveball, and I could throw a knuckleball. And anyways, they beat us like 5-3, I think, because like I said, we only played 5 innings. That was in the second game. I can't even remember what the first game was, but if you go on YouTube, and I don't know if it's in Japanese writing or not, or how you would put it in there. You might could put in there Japanese All Japan charity baseball game or something like that. And I guarantee you that it's on there somewhere, that it'll pop up and show you
Did you throw the knuckleball? I just want to see that.
I threw it a couple times. I sure did.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I love that pitch, man.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, like in Little League, I played a lot of baseball, and I was one of the first kids at my age level, which would have been about, 12 or something like that. I was the first one to be, because I wasn't fast. I wasn't really fast, but I could throw junk. And I threw a lot of junk. And I could throw a curveball. I had one that I could throw at you, and it would curve in for a strike. And then I had the other one that would just dump down on the floor. And I
always loved baseball, and I regretted that I couldn't have taken it further, because I truly believe I had the ability to go pretty far in baseball.
Sounds like it. Yeah, sounds like it. Man.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I'll throw this quick story in. When I had cracked my ankle and was healing up from that, I went to work for this railroad company. We were out in Orange, Texas, which is right on the border of Louisiana and Texas, and they were having a tryout up in Tyler, Texas, which is where me and Hoss said we were from. And I went up there one weekend. It was a 3-day thing, and there were like 100 guys up there, and I was 25, 6, 7 years old at this time. And all these, like 17, 18, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds or whatever. Yeah. And I don't know how many there were, but there was probably at least 75 or 100 kids out there, just having scouts look at them and stuff. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I got out there and, I pitched a little bit and all, and they clocked my fastball then at 93.
Damn.
Wow.
And that's a major league arm.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
you would have received a look anyway.
It's not real fast, but it's fast enough.
Yeah.
If you have control and you throw that fast.
And I made it down to like the last 15 guys that they even talked to. And they wanted me to go into a AAA team down in somewhere in Tup. It seemed like it was Corpus Christi or somewhere. And they were going to put me down there on that AAA. Not AAA, but single A minor league team. And even at my age. And but I said, but they told me, well, you're not going to make but about $800 a month down there on and I said, well, hell, I can make more money than that doing what I'm doing with this railroad company. And I know I can make more than that when I start back wrestling. So I never did go down there, and start with that.
That's pretty cool, man. That. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But back to Japan, I just, the people, like I said, they took to me for some reason. And I think the reason was because they could see, even though I was half the time getting my ass beat, I was fighting and I was giving it 100%.
Yeah.
And I wasn't out there doing stuff that looked bad and they could see through, and they respected me for that. Plus the fact that, being on nationwide TV and them charity baseball games didn't hurt. And I don't know. And being tagged up with Stan a lot. And then, one year they had me and Dick Slater tagged up together in that yearly tag team tournament they held every year. And then I was tagged up with Billy for a year or two.
Man, tell me, this is what I want to hear. I told you this earlier. I want to hear the biggest rib you ever pulled, or even the best rib ever pulled on you, or both.
Oh my God. Well, and this is the truth. I never really, I don't know if it's the way I carried myself in the dressing room, or, I've always been a personal guy, and I've always made friends easy, and but in the wrestling business, sometimes that don't matter. You still gonna get ribbed, but
right, yeah.
But I cannot really think of any vicious rib anyone ever pulled on me, or any kind of. They pretty much just, all the years, and I tried to count it up one time, and I think I had close to 7,000 matches over my 40-year career. And, during all that time, I just always got along. I never had a loud word that I can really remember.
Yeah.
Well, I might have raised my voice a couple of times here and there, but nothing, never any blows thrown or anything. But one funny rib was, they asked Calhoun on the tour, going over there to Japan, and all he did was eat. And
right.
And so I think it might have been, it was on the second tour, so it wasn't the first tour. It was on the second tour, and I can't remember exactly who it was. But anyway, they said we had a bunch of little Debbie cakes, and they stuffed one of them little Debbie cakes full of X-Lax and took them up there and laid the box of them. Hey, they had to put A-Stacks in first class because it's so big. And so they gave him that box of little Debbies, and he probably ate every one of them in there.
Wow. And
then after about an hour or so, we were sitting back in business class. That's back when they still had business class, first class, business class, then coach. And Baba always flew us either first class or business class. But anyway, Haystacks got up, and he couldn't fit in the bathroom.
Yeah, I guess.
He was too big to get even in the first class bathroom, and he had to shit.
Oh, man.
And so, he kept saying, we could hear him back in business class, I gotta go. And they didn't know what to do because they couldn't get him in the bathroom up in first class. He wouldn't fit. And so what they finally had to do was get in that little elevator thing. Then they bring stuff up in, and one of the flight attendants had to get in there and go down in the cargo area and bring back a big mail sack, and they had to pull all the curtains to the galleys closed and try to block off as much as they could, and got a bucket and set it there and set it in the middle of that mail sack, and Haystack had to sit down on that bucket and shit. And you could smell it all through the plane.
Oh my God.
And I'm talking about, this is one of these big 747, planes, and everybody was like gagging, and oh my God,
I get
it's like a big fog was going through the plane, and it was horrible. And we were just, laughing about it there, and it was funny, but it wasn't funny because it stuck so damn bad.
Yeah.
But we nobody ever told him what we did, and so I don't know if he ever found out or not, but that was one rib that was kind of a vicious rib.
Yeah.
And there's several, a lot of little things, like we used to, they used to super glue Sam Houston's cowboy hat, put super glue around it, and when he'd put it on and go out in the ring and stuff, he'd try to take it off, and it'd be stuck all to his hair and stuff.
Oh my God!
We used to do that with Black Bart too, and that was funny. But just little stuff like that, and
that's the stuff I'm looking for, man. That's hilarious, man. Just the way they did back then.
And I remember when Dusty sent us out there to Kansas City for that year almost, out there in what they call that territory. It wasn't Tri-State, it was Central State. Central State is what they called it. And they sent a crew of us, Baby Doll and Sam and me and Gene Ligon and Todd Champion, and I don't know, there was George South. There was a bunch of us that went out there. We starved to death, but anyway, Rocky King was with us out there, and we got some girl from the matches and brought her home. And so, so we got her up in the hotel room, and of course she was doing us all favors and stuff. And
oh Lord!
So Rocky King come in there, and I don't know if y'all have anybody ever told you about Rocky. He's a great guy. He used to drive a lot for Ricky and Robert, making road trips and stuff, because they'd make him drive where they wouldn't have to. But anyway, Rocky had a penis that when he stood up, it would hang down to his knee.
Oh my God!
I mean, I ain't shitting you. The thing had to be at least a foot long, probably 14 or 15. and Rocky, and he come in the hotel room with that girl in there, and he pulled his pants off, and she took one look at him and his dick and said, "You are not going to put that thing in me." and so he was trying to, rib her, and come on, she said, "Hell no." She got up and grabbed her clothes and run out there. But anyway, and then one time, Buddy Landell used to love to call up prostitutes all the time.
Buddy, I love Buddy.
Yeah, when Buddy would get coked up or be on a bench for 2 or 3 days, he loved calling them prostitutes and bring them over to my. I was staying in a house with another guy. I wasn't a wrestler; he was just a regular dude, and he let me with him. But Buddy used to love to come over there and bring his prostitutes, and I'd let him stay and use my room and stuff. So, and all the boys knew it, and all. So we told him we had this special prostitute, and she was just the most beautiful thing you ever seen in your life. And we were going to have him, it was his birthday or something's coming up, and we were going to have him a special surprise to come over, and we had a party over there that night. And so anyway, we got it all set up and fixed up, and so we found about a 350 or 400 pound black girl on the streets in Charlotte, and we all paid her about $50 a piece to come over there and wait in the bedroom for Buddy to come in there and meet her, and so Buddy comes up over there all cocky and laughing at him. Wiping the damn powder off his nose and stuff, and he goes back and we hid her in the closet, and so he goes back in the bedroom, and we tell him, well, okay, the girl's coming, she's gonna be here, and she's coming. And so we went in there and we closed the door and locked it, and we put them things that you put in doors to keep them from opening up. We put about 5 of them down there where he couldn't open that door and get out of there, and locked the windows down. And we told that that girl to wait about 5 minutes when she heard some noises in there, and then come out to bust out that closet and just run and jump on him in the bed. And so we waited, and we heard a big holler and scream, and oh my God, what the hell? And get out of here, you big dip up. And then he got up and started beating and trying to get out of the room and couldn't. And she was grabbing him and flinging him back on the bed, saying, "No, honey, you mine," and all that kind of stuff. And finally, after about 10 minutes, we opened the door back up, and he was just white as a Sheik in there.
That is funny as fuck.
It was pretty funny. I mean, Bobby and Eden and Dennis and Arn and all of us were in on that one.
Oh my God, that's funny. That is
had
funny.
Great times. Also, too, Bobby is Jamie's brother-in-law and his sister and all that kind of stuff, and had good times.
I do know
Bobby is a great guy, man. Here's what
Bobby was the best.
Oh, absolutely. What a great guy.
I never heard Bobby raise his voice one time. The whole 6 years I worked around him up there in Crockett Land.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, man, because we're getting up on time here, and I don't want to. I'm going to have you back for a number 2 if you're good with it. But I want to ask you this, and I ask everybody this, and I hate it when people ask me this because I can't. I just can't say who. Best match you ever had.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a hard question.
The best match I ever had. Well,
that's a tough question. I know.
It would have to be, although I think I had many really 3 or 4 star matches, in my day of all the people I was blessed to be able to work with. But one match that always comes up as actually not only being a great match, toughest and most hardest to make it through in match was me and Stan, and this was around my 3rd or 4th tour, I can't remember. Me and Stan wrestled Genrico Tenru, and I think it's pronounced his name Ashura Hara, who was a world-class rugby player before he turned pro wrestler. We had a championship tag team match between me and Stan and Tenru, who, by the way, Tenru ended up being one of my best friends ever over there.
Really?
There's another story there I could tell. But anyway, and they were both tough as nails and worked the total Japanese style. And so everybody was in there. And so anyway, wrestling them for the Japan World Tag Team title belts was, I think, one of my proudest moments.
That's awesome.
Working in Japan and working that particular match and I also had some great matches with Jumbo Tsuruta, who I think was just a fantastic wrestler. And me and Stan had some good matches with Doc and Terry too over there.
Oh, I bet.
Matter of fact, there's a really good match with me and I think Stan and Tracy Smothers against
Tracy,
against Mizawa, Kawada, and either Kikuchi or Kobashi. 1 of the 3, 2, I can't remember, but it was a great match. It's on YouTube. And
Tracy that I rode up and down the roads with, and he taught me a lot. But he's just such a funny fucker, man. Just oh Lord, the way he would freak out every now and then and stuff like that. I talk to Dirty White Boy every now and then. Well, I don't say every now and then, but probably 3 times a week. Tony Anthony, but we talk about Tracy and we laugh and stuff like that. And Tracy was such a good guy.
Tracy was great.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
Really. And when Tracy come over there, that was his first tour, and I helped him, man. I told him, every match we'd come up and no matter if it was him wrestling somebody, another one of the Japanese, or us together in a tag or whatever it was, I would always tell him what to expect from whoever it was he was wrestling over there, because he didn't know, you know, and I would say, okay, Tracy, tonight you got it pretty easy. You're wrestling so-and-so. They're against, you know, Kawada or Mizawa or somebody. You got to really be able to go. Okay, Joel, thank you. And I did the same thing with Dustin Rhodes when he come over there, his first tour when he was 19 years old. And he's always thanked me for helping him when he come over there, his first tour. But
obviously a integral part in a lot of people's careers and stuff, man, Joel. I mean, everything I've seen about you, I look up to you, man. I just want to thank you for, you know, coming on the show, man. I really do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I thank you guys for having me, you know, and, you know, I like doing these things. Like I said, I hadn't done one in a while, but, you know, once you guys get to asking questions, and I get to thinking back, man, things just start popping in my head, and I can just remember, you know, and it's, you know, I never was no big superstar or nothing, you know, but I'm really proud of my body of work in professional wrestling, and you know, I had, you know, my share of pushes, I guess you could say, but I never, I never made the big money, but I made and kept the job for over 30 years in the business, and I'm very proud of that.
Let me say this to you, man. I mean, even though you say that, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Like, I've done a lot of cool things. Never made a boatload of money, but I respect the fact that my peers respect me and things like that, and I think yours do too. And I do. I respect you, man. I think you're an incredible worker. You know, the Japan thing, all that. I respect the shit out of you, man. I just want you to know that.
Well, you know, I thank you very much for that, and it really humbles me when I hear people that do give me accolades and do respect some of the things I did. You know, it makes you feel good because, you know, I really worked hard, as I know you did, and you know, and people, you know, they unless you've done it and lived it, then they don't really know, and it's hard for people to relate. And you know, and I'm just so happy that I've had so many thousands of people pray for me since I've had this stroke and send me messages and letters.
Yeah, and that's another thing, man. If you don't mind, quickly, the story that you told me when me and you talked on the phone, if you're okay with that, can you tell me about like what happened and everything?
Well, I just know that I must have had the stroke in my sleep because I woke up just regular like I did every morning in my apartment, and I didn't sense anything wrong there to begin with when I just opened my eyes there in bed, but when I went to move and to, you know, put my feet over on the floor to get up to go to the bathroom, you know, I noticed that my arm first was like I couldn't feel it. And it was like, you know, when your hand or your arm or something goes to sleep and you have to kind of take it and move it around to wake it up. Well, that's what, you know, I tried to do to start with my arm, but I couldn't even shake it. I couldn't even pick it up to try to get the feelings to come back into it. So I didn't know what was going on. And then when I tried to move my leg over and put it on the floor to get up, you know, it was dead too.
And that was all the left side.
So I took my good my right hand, I reached over and I grabbed my leg and I pulled it over and put it on the floor. And I said, well, let me stand up. And I went to try to stand up and my leg just buckled on me and I fell kind of plop set, you know, on the floor there. And I was just thinking, my God, what the hell? And during the night, I had fallen asleep with the phone, you know, beside my pillow there in the bed with me. And somewhere during the night, I knocked my phone behind my bed on the floor. It fell behind my bed, and so I'm laying there on the floor, and so I laid all the way down and looked under the bed, and it was dark, and I couldn't see under there or my phone, and because I was trying to, call for some help, and I couldn't get it, and I couldn't see it, and I didn't have a flashlight or nothing handy to grab to try to look and see, and so I sat there on that floor from 7:30 that morning till about 9:30 that night.
Oh shit!
And I finally, there was a Gatorade jar sitting up on my dresser, and I grabbed it and I peed in it, and finally I saw my golf clubs were sitting over there leaning against the closet, and I crawled, kind of got myself over there and grabbed a iron out of my golf club bag, and I started fishing under my bed for my phone, and it took me like 3 hours of that before I finally found where because even stretching my arm under the bed, I had a big king size bed, and reaching with a golf club, I somehow couldn't get that phone, but I finally, about 9 o'clock that night, got my phone out from under that bed. Damn. And called my sister who lived in town here and told her. I said, all I could say was, I didn't even call 911. I just called her. I said, because I lived in a garage apartment behind my parents' house. They have a big, nice house with a garage apartment behind there. And I stayed gone on the road for so many years that I had came home back to my hometown here, and I wanted to be around them to help them do the things that they needed help in doing. Anyway, long story short, I finally got the phone, fished over there to me, and called my sister and told her, I said, Jennifer, something's wrong. I'm paralyzed. I can't move my left side, and come over here and get my mom and dad up, and y'all come over to the apartment and see about me. And so she did. She came over there and got them up, and they come over there, and I had locked the door. And it's about 15 steps to get up to my apartment. And my dad called me and said, well, you can't come down and unlock the door. And I said, no. And he said, what? You can't get down here? I said, no, Dad, I can't. So they had to take the hinges out and take the door off. And then him and my sister come up them steps. And my dad got up to the top of the steps, and he turned around and took one look at me and said, son, you've had a stroke.
Damn.
He called 911, and they come out there and got me and took me to the hospital here in town, and they did a CAT scan and all that stuff, and confirmed that I had a massive stroke. And they put me in an ambulance and took me from here to Emory Hospital in Atlanta. And Emory's one of the top hospitals in the country. And, in an ambulance with the siren blaring and everything. And I was in ICU for like 3.5 weeks. And then I think I stayed there about 2 months and before they moved me to another rehab facility. But anyway, that was 4 years ago. And I've been still to this day working and trying to get better with my walk. That's my main thing, is I want to get my walking better, but it's not easy. Let me tell you, when you're dealing with one good arm and really a half leg, and nothing's easy.
Yeah, I imagine, man.
And I have to transfer back and forth from my wheelchair or my electric wheelchair to the bed or to the toilet, or I don't ask nobody coming to help me. I still do it by myself, even here. Yeah. But it's still not easy. And
I believe it.
And it's just, man, it's just, I feel it's just my life was just stolen away from me in the blink of an eye in my sleep. I mean, it's strange because all those years wrestling, I never to this day have had a surgery or anything, all those bumps over all those years. And I attribute that to having good fun, teach good fundamentals when I was in my training by Lars.
Yeah, I believe that too, man. I believe that
and
too.
I know I knew my limitations.
Yeah. I believe that, man. And I just want you to know that, man, I appreciate you and everything you did. I've watched you since I was a kid, and me and you talked on the side, and I told you some of my stuff and all that kind of thing or whatever. Man, I respect the shit out of you, and thank you so much for coming on here and just talking, and even talking about that. I know that's probably hard to do or whatever, but I appreciate it, Joel. I really do.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Jim and Wolf, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate that there's guys like you that has a show where you have, real people that lived in the time, in the era of the, so-called glory years of the old school type, wrestling guy. And I enjoy talking about it because, I was really lucky to be in some good places through some good times. And, I was with Crockett right there with the birth of the Four Horsemen, the Rock and Roll Midnight Feud, I was in the middle of all that when all that started up. So, not to mention in All Japan when Kobashi was coming up and Kawada and Talway and Mizawa and being around all that and being, with Doc and Terry and all the great tag teams from all over that came in and worked for Baba, being able to be and live through all that. I mean, it's just a blessing. And it was a hell of a ride, and I'll never forget it.
Absolutely.
But anytime you guys want me back on, just give me a call or let me know, and I'll be glad to run my mouth for another hour or so.
Hey,
thank you.
Let me tell you something, man. I'm going to call you when we ain't recording because I respect you that much. I will call you and we'll just talk and just bullshit. You know what I mean? I really respect you, and thank you so much for coming on here and talking about this, man. It's been awesome. It's been absolutely awesome.
Okay. And hey, call me anytime, man. I get lonely here sometimes, and I love talking to the boys. Yeah, just call me anytime you want, and and that'd be great. So, so this thing will drop next week sometime
on Monday.
Monday, yeah.
We'll send you the links to it. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great because I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, we'll get it out there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool.
I'd like to see how much I embarrass myself. But anyway,
no, not a bit.
No, you won't. I promise you. You're going to get. We get a lot of downloads. We stay up in the top. And the only people that are above us are like Jeff and Arn and all the guys got sponsors. We don't have sponsors, but we do good. We get a lot of downloads, thousands and thousands of downloads. And
well, I'm sure that y'all do well because, what I like about when I do these things is the people that conduct the interviews be informed and knowledgeable about, about who they have on and, little, things about their career where they know things to ask and it makes it easier for me to do the interview and for, it's just and a smart thing for you guys to do to be up on whoever you're having on.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I'm sure you guys know that. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir,
for having me, and it was my pleasure. And I look forward to talking to you guys again sometime soon.
Hey, I'm going to talk to you on the side, though, for real. It's Wolfie here, and I'm going to talk to you on the side, man.
Well, no problem, man. Warren, you give me a call anytime, brother. I'm right here.
Yes, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
Right.
I probably will.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon, I promise.
Okay. Y'all take care. God bless.
Thank you, brother.
All right, guys, we're back, and Joel Deaton is our new friend here, and we're doing a part 2, and I can't wait to hear the funny story that he has told me. Joel, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm hanging on.
Jeez.
You told me a story the other day that I want the listeners to hear, and I can't wait. This is so funny, man. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. So can you give us a thing of what's going on?
Yeah, but first I just want to say that, we live here with Wolfie D. We got the Outlaw Joel Deaton on here for part 2.
Hell yeah.
And y'all put your belt on, cinch it up tight, and sit down because we fix to go on a little ride here.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so let's see, what is this, Monday?
Yeah.
Well, all right. So this is what happened to me on, I think it was June the 22nd, on Saturday night, about 1:30 in the morning. I'm in a rehab assisted living facility in Warner Robins, Georgia here. I have been for the past year.
Yeah, that was after you struck and everything.
Yeah, I done been in 6 of these damn places, and, you know, I was glad to get back to one close here to home to my mom, who just turned 90 a couple weeks ago. And so, but, you know, I've had this roommate for the last month and a half or so, and it's been a problem since day one.
You let me kind of talk to him one time. You thought he was like a cool guy, right?
Listen, you don't ever know who's cool at this place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, we had been having problems ever since, you know, he'd been in there because there's 2 TVs in this room. There were 2 of us in there. And he keeps his TV wide open all night long. It ain't been turned off since he'd been in there for a month and a half. He just refuses to do it. It's highly disrespectful, and we've had heated arguments about it. And so this one night, last Saturday on the 22nd, he decided he wanted to, about 1:30 in the morning, he wanted to have his TV wide open, plus the big overhead light on in the room. And, you know, I got earplugs that I have to use to try to block all that sound. And it's this facility's fault for not making him, you know, that nobody should be able to play their TV wide open, you know, in a place like this late at night. But anyway, so I decided I was laying in the bed trying to pull the blanket over my head to keep that bright light, because since my stroke, my eyes were real sensitive to bright lights, and it's painful.
Yeah.
So after, you know, 30, 45 minutes of me laying there with the blanket over my head, I said, fuck this. and I got up, and I got in my little electric wheelchair and rolled up to the doorway, and I flipped the light off. And I'm going to see if this idiot gets up and comes over here and tries to turn it back on. He had the curtain pulled, but I could see his shadow because that light was on, and he was coming up towards the light switch to turn it back on. Right when he got to the light switch, I snatched the curtain back and said, "You ain't turning this damn light back on." You know, and it kind of startled him. And he took a step back, and he didn't fall down. He just kind of sat down there on the floor. And so I said, well, so I looked at him to see, you know, he hurt himself. And no, he didn't hurt himself. And he had been fooling these people the whole time he's been here that, he can't walk without a walker, and he can't do this, and he's so feeble. Well, bullshit.
Really?
I went on out in the hallway with my back to the doorway, which I never should have done, but, you know, and they even called down the hall to the nurse and told her that my roommate had fallen and might better come, you know, see him. Well, while I'm waiting on her to get out in the hall, he come up behind me with a hard plastic, about a 4 or 5 pound trash can.
Do what?
I never thought. Yeah, I mean I never saw it coming. He raised that trash can up over his head with both hands and came down, hit me on top of the head with it as hard as he could swing it.
No.
And, you know, yeah, man, the first blow, it was like just wham, you know, and I was like, well, damn, what was that? And so all I could do, you know, I turned around and looked, and he already had it raised.
You got your left arm, you can't move it, right?
Right. My left side is paralyzed. My left leg woke up a little bit. It was paralyzed, but I can, you know, move it and stuff. But my left arm.
But you're in a wheelchair, and your left arm, and this guy's hitting you.
Yeah, he's hitting me as hard as he can swing that hard plastic trash can down on me. And so, okay, he hits me like the first couple of times, and I didn't sell it. You know, I was just like, what the hell, you know, and I'm trying to turn around and look over my shoulder at him because I didn't want to, and I tried to turn my electric wheelchair around where I could be facing him, where I could defend myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, when I went to do that, I hit the damn off button.
Oh my God,
on the damn thing. So I said, well, shit. So you know, I didn't want to take my eyes off of him long enough for me to look down and turn it back on. So, because, I was afraid, he was already just steadily pounding me.
Damn.
A good 8 or 9 times on top of the head with that, with that hard plastic trash can. And believe me, they're heavy. Like, and I'm serious. They're like at least 5 or 6 pounds.
Man.
Damn.
And so anyway, somehow, and I don't know if he had it sitting there or we went and got it or what, but he come out with my cane, and it's a heavy iron cane. It ain't one of them lightweight canes. It's heavy. It's a good 6 or 7 pounds.
Damn.
And he picked that thing up like Babe Ruth at the plate. And he ran back with both hands on it and swung that cane at me as hard as he could swing it. And I just, out the corner of my eye, looking over my shoulder, I saw it coming. And thank God I was able to reach back with my good arm in hand at the last second and catch it about 2 inches before it made contact with my head.
Damn.
If he had made contact, if it didn't kill me, it would have. I don't know, man. It probably would have. It would have did some serious damage, worse than what he'd already done. And so I caught
what did they do with this guy, man?
Well, after I caught the cane, I snatched it out of his hand and I slung it down the hall. And then by that time, this other nurse, she was running down the hall screaming, "Stop! He's bleeding!" Well, no shit, bitch. Yeah, he's been down here beating on me for fucking 5 minutes. Y'all should have been down here stopping.
Good Lord.
And so anyway, he kind of went back in the room, and like he's like so feeble, and he kind of sat down in the floor. And one of them CNAs, assistant nurses or whatever, they come in the room and looked at him, sit down, and looked down at him, and said, "Get your ass up. There ain't nothing wrong with you beating on that man like that." So anyway.
Damn.
They called the cops. I made them. I said, I want him arrested. This was an assault, an aggravated assault.
Yeah, man.
And so the cops came and the ambulance and the EMTs and everything. And I had a big old egg on one side of my head.
Yeah,
and
you sent me the pictures, man. You were bleeding, man, from your eye.
Yeah, I was bleeding. My left eye was bleeding and cut and I had, knots all over my head, under my hairline and stuff. And
damn.
So anyway, the EMTs were telling me, and I'm on blood thinners too. So, they said, you need to go to the hospital and let us check you out, make sure that you don't have any bleeding on your brain, and stuff. Because if you do, then it could kill you. I said, yeah, well, that'd be the second time tonight then, because this motherfucker here already tried to kill me.
Yeah.
So I went to the hospital and I went through all that procedure and all that ordeal, which I hate to go in the hospital, but I did. They had to talk me into it, but I went.
Yeah.
Long story short, the CT scan showed that, I guess I was, it wasn't any bleeding on my brain. Thank goodness. And so they brought me back here and they had moved him out of my room down on the other side of the built facility down in one of the other halls and posted somebody outside his door to make sure.
He should have got an assault charge, man.
Absolutely.
Well, I told the police, I said, I want him arrested. I said, and I said, just look at me. And I didn't know at the time that it was all on video. And,
wow.
And so, anyway, they wouldn't arrest him because of his condition, they said. Yeah, and they were just, he said that I pushed him, which is a damn lie. And so anyway, I kept calling the cops. I said, I want this man arrested. And finally, a detective came down and the administrator of this place first came and told me that he saw the video, he got the video, and it was a vicious assault. And I said, yeah, that's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
And the detective came and he got the video and took it to the police station. And he looked at it and he called me and said, yeah, that was excessive, to say the least. And I said, well, no shit.
Damn, man. I mean,
so anyway,
pictures. You sent me the pictures of your eye and stuff like that, and hell, man, God, I can't imagine. That sucks, man.
I mean, when if I had just could have been turned around facing him, then he wouldn't have got a lick in on me.
Oh, we all know, man. If Joel Deaton had not been, stroked and with your arm not being able to move, you would have, plastered that guy. We know this.
Yeah, I mean, and what can you do when somebody sneaks up behind you and attacks you? You know what I mean?
Cheap shot. Yeah, cheap shot.
That's a coward act, but he did. So what they did, they got him out of here, like that happened on last Saturday night, and they got him out of here, I think Tuesday. And they're sending him down to some psychiatric place in Baxley, Georgia, wherever that is, down South Georgia somewhere.
Mm.
So I don't know how long he's going to be down there, but I'm still. And I talked to one of them cops today about, charging him. I want him charged, and processed and whatever it takes, because that just can't be swept under the rug,
Nah, that's bullshit, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so, that was my all the years of wrestling, 7,000 something matches, and I ain't never, and I've been in some battles, but I ain't never come out of one looking like I did after coming out of that little episode.
No doubt, man. Even in Japan, Joel.
I know it. We used to call Japan the war zone,
right?
Because it was.
Yeah.
But but yeah, it was bad, man. It should have never happened because they should have got him. They were scheduled to move him out of that room. The next Monday following the Saturday that happened anyway, because all the shit was going on, and he was just a fucking idiot, man.
Yeah.
And so they wanted him. They was gonna put him down in some room where the man down in that room, he smeared shit all over the wall and bathroom. They said, let him sit down in there with that roommate.
Yeah, that would be a good one for him. Yeah. That would be a good one for him.
Fucking gross.
Let me ask you something, because we had Sam Houston on about a month ago, and he was talking about when he went to prison that he had to fight all the time, because he was a wrestler. Do you think this guy had it out for you because you were a wrestler, or was this solely just a crazy dude, unhinged guy? No,
wrestling didn't have nothing to do with it. And,
yeah, okay.
Sam, he's got his own story, but I got in a little trouble back in the 90s. I'm not going to get into, but I spent a minute,
Yeah.
And I never had no trouble with nobody trying to fight me. I mean, not that I'm no badass or nothing, but I just carried myself in a way that that didn't nobody fuck with me.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't.
Sam said he put the sharpshooter on everybody.
He did.
About that.
He did. He put the sharpshooter on prison.
Sam, I think he exaggerates a little bit on a few things. I'm not going to get into it. I like Sam and everything. But I've heard some of his interviews and stuff before, and he kind of gets out there with them sometimes.
He was entertaining. He said that he almost got eaten by cannibals down in Papua New Guinea. I mean, it was an entertaining episode. Yeah. So, but
almost got eaten by cannibals. What the hell?
Yeah, him and Action Jackson and somebody else were down in Papua New Guinea. And it's not Action Mike Jackson. It's a guy, Action Jackson, was a wrestler, right, Joel? There was a different Action Jackson, I think. There was Action Mike, and then anyway, that doesn't matter. But he was down there. And
that was funny.
He had a whole tribe of cannibals trying to eat him. So, yeah.
Well, I don't, if he said it, then I'm not going. I wasn't there because that's why I can't say one way or the other. But that sounds kind of out there to me.
We'll just say that it is out there. I mean, whether it's real or because he had a lot of conviction in telling the story. Let's just say that, right, Wolfie? So
yeah, absolutely. No, man, you called me up and you were like, "Hey, let's do part 2." So you got some good stories, man. We loved part 1. Tell me some stuff, man. Tell me some good stories.
Well, okay. I was thinking, about some different things I didn't tell on the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told the Dick Slater story or the Wahoo story or some things that happened over in Japan. I could even tell the Terry Gordy story. I was right there. I met him in the airport in Atlanta is where, you know, everybody that lived here in the South, you know, we would go to Japan, we'd fly out of Atlanta to L.A., then we'd meet Mr. Uno out there in L.A., and he'd have our visas and passports and all that stuff, and then we'd get on the plane and fly to Japan.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, you know, Terry, and so we were sitting. I mean, you want to hear this about Terry? You want me to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it was me and Richard Slinger, Terry's nephew. And I love Richard, man. He's a good guy, and turned out to be a hell of a little worker. And but anyway, so we're all meeting up at the airport like we always do on our tours, and so, you know, we were in the crown room or the little lounge thing they have, and I said, Terry, I said, what, you got anything from any medication with you on this trip? You know, because we always shared stuff. You know, and he said, yeah, I got. And he pulled out a bottle of Lorset, you know, 10, a whole bottle. I think it had like 150 in there.
Damn.
And I said, damn. I said, I couldn't get, you know, I didn't have any.
Yeah.
And I said, damn, man, let me get a few of them. So he dumped out about 30 or 40 of them and gave them to me. And I said, thank you, man. And so I popped me a couple immediately just on GP. And
General
so
principle.
we waited around and got on a plane. And Terry, you know, Terry was a drinker. And so,
Yeah.
you know, he drank all the way to L.A. It was 3.5 hours from Atlanta. We landed in L.A., and we got our stuff, and we had to go change down everything to get over to the flight where the Japanese airline flight that's going to Tokyo. Plus, we had to meet with the man and get our visas and all that stuff. And so he was doing pretty good, you know, once we got to L.A. But then when we got to L.A., we had about a couple hour layover waiting to get on the plane to go on to Japan. And Doc, we met the rest of the guys, you know, Steve Williams, and I think Danny Crawford, Doug Furness, and
Danny
Richard
Crawford
was there.
I remember.
And there was a bunch of us. I think Abdullah might have been on that tour. And anyway, so Terry was drinking in that crown room, and I don't know what else he had besides the pain pills, but he was drinking, you know, and I don't know how many he took or what, but when it come time, when they called for our flight to board, we were in that crown room, and Terry was so, you know, I'm sure peeled up, but the alcohol is what kicked it off. And he couldn't move.
Dang.
Hardly, you know. So we had to help him up and put him in a wheelchair. And then we're rolling, and I had about an ounce of pot down my pants. We always took pot over there. I mean, we could buy it in the city parks over there in Tokyo and Osaka, and from the Iraqis. They had hash. And they'd always have these little blocks of hash we could buy, you know. Plus we had other connections there. But anyway, so, you know, so we walked down the gangplank and then make the left turn to go onto the plane, and there was 6 police and a police dog, German Shepherd, sitting there.
Oh.
And I said, God almighty. I said, man, I'm busted. I know that dog's going to smell this pot, because it was some good shit. I mean, you could smell it half a mile away through the back. So anyway, you know, they didn't bring the dog up, you know, to smell us or nothing, but he was sitting there. And that cop told Terry, when he was sitting there in the wheelchair, and the captain of the flight, the pilot, was there at the door, and he looked at Terry and he told him, I'm gonna let you on this plane, but you ain't drink, you know, because they thought he was just drunk. They didn't know he was peeled up too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we went. Doc was helping him, and we all got on the plane, and Doc and Terry was up in first class, and we were in business class, which is just like first class. I don't even know if they have business class anymore, but
Yeah.
it was just like first class, big old seats and everything, and everything was free, you know. But so here we go, we take off, and I think it's like 11.5 hour flight from LA to Tokyo. And so, you know, I mean, I basically stayed in my seat and watching movies, and I'm not a drinker, but I might have had a beer or something, or maybe a mimosa or something. I don't know, but and I had some halcyons, and I might have had some Xanax.
Oh
man,
because it's
I ain't heard
always
that
good
one
to
since
have.
Mexico.
Yeah, it's always good to have a little something to help you sleep on these long flights.
Yeah,
definitely.
And so so I was just sitting back, and like I said, I watched a couple movies, and I took me a pill or two, and I was relaxed and sleeping, and so the next thing I know, when we're getting on approach to the Narita airport there in Tokyo, Richard comes back. He wasn't in first class, but he was in business class with us. But he got up, went up there, and was talking to with Doc Terry, and even I, went up there and I sat down up there and was talking to him, during the flight. But anyway, Doc said we went up there, and Richard come back and he said, "Man, Terry won't wake up." I said, "What?" I said, "Doc can't get him woke up." I said, "What do you mean he can't get him woke up?" And so I went up there, and Doc was paintbrushing him, slapping him across the face back and forth,
man,
trying to wake him up, and he was cold. He was cold to the touch. And I said, "Doc," I said, what happened? What's going on with Terry?" And he said, "Man, he dumped out a bottle full of pain pills, and he eat every one of them." I said, "What?"
Oh my God.
And then, like I said, I don't know if he gave anybody else any out of that bottle, but he had to have taken 40 or 50 of those Lorcet.
Wow.
Damn.
And plus drinking.
Yeah.
And Terry could drink. And anyway, so we're all up there, we're scared, and I'm shaking him, "Terry, man, Terry, wake up. And he was just out. So, we landed, and when we landed, the ambulance came up to the little thing they push out there for us to walk down the steps. To get off the plane, and they had to get him and put him on a stretcher and take him down them steps and put him on an ambulance. And Richard went with him. They took him to the hospital, and then when they got him to the hospital, he didn't wake up for like 6 days.
Good Lord, man.
He was in a coma.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they couldn't. It didn't wake him up, and he didn't wake up. For Richard said, because he stayed there the whole time for like 6 days, and finally he woke up. And when he did, man, he was never the same.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think I told you this, Joe. Man, he did an appearance in USWA when we were doing the Smoky Mountain versus USWA. And he was supposed to pile drive me through a table. And this was after that. All that shit you're talking about, this was after that. And he picked me up, and I forget what happened. The table was not set up. It wasn't like, the legs weren't out or whatever. It was on the ground. It was like flat. And he picked me up for a pile driver, and he walked around with me. He just walked around with me. It was just weird. I felt like I was in a pile driver for, I don't know. But
at least he had the good sense. He didn't hurt you, did he?
No. He pile drived me, and I mean, he eventually did it, but he just like picked me up, and he walked around. You could tell that because it was improv. It was like the table was supposed to be set up, right? And he's supposed to, boom, pile drive me through the table, boom. But for whatever reason, I don't remember what it was, but the table was on the mat, and it wasn't set up. It was just laying there. And he picks me up, and he puts me in the pile driver, and then he starts walking around. He starts walking around with me. And I'm like, fuck, man, what the fuck? And then I swear it was like, I swear it felt like fucking 30 minutes, man. He just held me in a pile driver, walked around, then finally he fucking did it. And yeah, it was weird.
Man.
Well, thank God, he didn't hurt. But man, you could look at Terry's eyes and look at his face, and you could tell he wasn't there, man.
Yeah.
The lights were on, but wasn't nobody home.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's so sad because, man, Terry was my best buddy.
Man.
After I started going to Japan, Terry had already been going for several years, and we had like our little clique over there. It was me and Doc and Terry and Richard, and and Crawford, and then some of the other guys that, you know, were like the party and stuff that would be on different tours. We'd let them, you know, hang with us and stuff. And, you know, we'd all go out, you know, partying down in Roppongi, the big party section of Tokyo, one of them. But it was really sad, you know, and I saw Terry several times after that happened, and he just never, you know, and I talked to him a little bit, and he just said, Joel, man, he said, I just can't, you know, because I think I had a match with him somewhere, and I sat down and, you know, Terry, what you want to do, man? And he said, Joel, you know, he couldn't even put his thoughts together or anything. So I just said, okay, Terry, don't worry about it, man. I'll do everything and we'll get through it, brother. And that was the last time I saw him. And I'm so sad about it. And I'm still sad because, man, I love Terry Gordy. He was, you know, has to be on the Mount Rushmore big men.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
One of the best. And, you know, they talk about the Freebirds. Well, let me tell you, Terry was the bird. All them other ones, they rode on his back.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And
what do you don't think Hayes was? I mean, Hayes could talk now.
Hayes was.
Do you honestly think that Gordy was the man? I mean, I get what you're saying, and I know this.
Listen, Michael could talk. Yes, he could talk, and he had, you know, charisma and stuff, but he couldn't work a lick.
He seemed kind of like Jimmy Valiant a little bit when he worked. I mean, he was probably better overall, but you know what I'm saying. He kind of had that lighter touch, like Boogie, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, of course, they had that big run out there with the Von Erichs and stuff, and you know, Terry told me those Von Erichs were really stiff. And so they had, it was a battle, you know, for them wrestling those guys. But they drew a lot of money with the Von Erichs, and the Freebirds were really over.
Yeah,
and it was because, you know, Michael Hayes on the microphone and his flamboyance, you know, shaking his ass and his hair around, and then they had Buddy Roberts, who was the veteran that
took
really,
the bumps,
you
basically.
know, yeah, and then they had Big Terry in there that really, you know, he was, you know, whoever their opponents were, you know, they had big men against them. You know, Terry was the one that, you know, took care of most of the battling with him.
Yeah.
And he was, man, I trust Terry with my life. You know, I worked with him, I don't know how many times, a lot. And he never hurt me one time. And I always enjoyed working with Terry. He took bumps for me, you know, like he was dang 190 pounds.
Wow.
He'd fly all over the ring for me. And he was such a good guy, man. But when it comes time, you know, the guy
ain't that fun though when you're in there with, you know, your buddy. You know what I mean? Like you just said, he'd fly all over the ring because you were buddies, and you know you punch him and he fucking flies for you. That's awesome, man. When you're in there with your buddy and y'all just having fun, I love that, man.
Yeah, and then, you know, especially over in Japan, you know, people just don't realize, and I encourage people, you know, to watch some of those matches, you know, with Terry and Hanson and the Funks and just, you know, Mizawa, Kawada, Kobashi, those guys, those Japanese guys were just great. I saw some of the best, Tenaru. Tenaru was my best buddy. I'll tell you a story about him too. Yeah. But anyway, Jumbo Saruta and all those guys. But I used to take about at least like a quarter ounce, or half ounce or something, a pot. Tenru liked to smoke pot because when he came over here back in 78, 79 and worked for Georgia Championship Wrestling, he couldn't hardly speak English, and he was staying out there at that damn whatever the name of that hotel was down South Atlanta. I can't remember where we all stayed. And the Falcon Inn, I think was the name of it. And anyway, so I helped him, you know, and I took him places and got him, you know, grocery store, and just got him around, rode with him to some of the towns and stuff, and I helped him out. And he never forgot that, because when I first went to Japan, my first time in 87, you know, he was still working with Baba at that point. He hadn't broke off with that SWS promotion. He started some I think it was a eye doctor, a millionaire eye doctor. You know, he put up, I don't know, $20 or $30 million for Tin Roo to start that promotion, and Tin Roo took some of Baba's guys, and anyway, that's another story. But anyway, every single time that I would go over there, you know, I would take him at least a quarter ounce or half ounce of pot, good pot. And he would take me out somewhere to some 5-star hotel, or either, you know, to one of these Turkish baths.
I've got to ask you this. All right, so you're going to Japan and you're taking ounces of pot. So, I mean, back then, I know, you know, it was before 9/11, blah, 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 blah. How do you get on a plane with that much pot?
Well, back then, you know, security wasn't as tight as it was now.
Right.
And so, yeah, we were taking a chance, and then when we got to Tokyo, they knew who we were.
Right.
They knew that we were wrestlers, so we was kind of just whisked right through the customs and right through the, you know, everything, and with no problem whatsoever. They didn't search our suitcases or nothing. They just opened them up and closed them back up.
I got you.
You know, we had, I guess you could say, privileges.
Yeah.
Because they knew who we were, and they never gave us any problems.
You went there, and that's the thing, man. You went to Japan during the day, man, when the Americans were making money, and y'all were rock stars, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really was. I mean, and I'm not trying to be braggadocious by any means, because I was not no superstar coming from the United States over into Japan. But I got over in Japan. And anybody that was ever on the tour will tell you Joel Deaton was over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you know, I just went out there and fought the best I could every night, and I gave it everything I had, and the fans were smart. They could tell if you were out there bullshitting or not.
Yeah.
And, you know, win, lose, I lost more than I won. I had over 500 matches over there. But anyway, they were behind me, and they would start chanting my name, you know, and everything. But anyway, so after Tin Roo would take me out.
What was your record, Joel? I had a guy come up to me one time. It's so funny. He goes, "What's your record?" And I was like, I said, "What?" He said, "What's your record?" And I said, "I don't fucking know." This was in like a Outlaw show somewhere. He goes, "I'm 2-0 in the Battle Royal." And I laughed. I just laughed. It was funny.
Well, he sounds like
man.
That sounds like he's a little bit markish.
Oh, he was a huge mark. He was the same guy that I came up to, and I said, you know the story, Jimmy, right?
I love this story. This story.
I came up to this guy, and I said, we were fixing to do something. I said, "Hey, man, you got any spots?" And he goes,
I love this story.
I go, "What?" And he goes, I said, "Bro," I said, you got any spots you want to do? No. And he started looking at his arms. And I said, "Bro, you ain't got no spots?" And he said, "No." And he was looking at his arms. I don't know what he thought that I thought, but blah, blah, blah. He thought that I said, "Do you have spots on your arms?" And that was when I realized that, I was in the wrong place.
Yeah, at that point, I wouldn't have said nothing else to him. I just said, "Shut up and listen."
Yeah, it's over.
But anyway, getting back to the Tin Roo thing, you know, after we kept getting through eating and having a great time wherever one of the places he'd take me, well, he would hand me an envelope, and he would say, "Here, Joe," you know, when we got ready to leave, and I'd say, you know, "Tin Roo," and I'd open the envelope, and I'd see 10,000 yen bills in there, and I said, "No, man, Tin Roo, no, man, no, you don't have to give me no this, please, no." And he looked at me and said, "Joe, please," he said, "you hurt my feelings if you don't accept." You know, and I said, "Well, okay, thank you very much." And I get in the cab, and on the way back to the hotel, I'd open my damn envelope, and man, there'd be anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 worth of yen in there. Every single tour, man, not just once, every single time I went over there, he did that for me.
Wow.
And so that took care of all my partying money and food money and you know, and souvenir money and everything for the whole month I didn't have to get no draws or anything, but I did. I would get 2 or 3 draws just to keep them guessing. I didn't want them to know I had, that extra money and stuff.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was Tenru, man. He was a hell of a guy, and he was a hell of a worker too. And I had a match with him in Hara, who was a world-class rugby player, and me and Stan against them two one time for the belts. And man, it's on tape, and it was brutal. Yeah. But anyway, that was it. Funny thing about that match was that was on one of my first and second tours. And so they had me down on the mat, with some kind of hole on me or whatever, and the Stan was hollering, yelling from the corner, "Get up, Deaton! Get up, fight! Get up, fight!" And if I didn't get up quick enough to suit him, he would come in through the ropes and come across the ring and stomp me in the head 2 or 3 times and holler, "Get up, Deaton, get up." So he didn't have to do that but a couple times. And then from then on, anytime I was out there in the ring with him, he never had to do that again because I made sure I had my ass up and fighting.
That's funny, man. That's awesome. That's just how Stan was, Shit. I love that.
Stan kind of took me under his wing there a little bit because I was tagged up with Stan a bunch of times, like more than anybody else. Even when a couple of years tagging with Slater and then Billy Black, when they wasn't on the tour, they would have me hooked up with Stan, and a lot of spot shows around, stuff like that. But in the semi-main and main events. And
what do you know about the story with him and Vader, where he fucking put Vader's eye out? Basically, what do you know about that story?
Well, I posted a little video of that on Facebook the other day. You can look on my page and watch it. It shows the Vader. He liked to throw those. He had more than little glove things.
Yeah,
and he'd like to throw them little punches and stuff, and he threw 4 or 5 of them, hit Stan. I could tell he was connected pretty good with them, and Stan just charged him and he slapped him with a left and a right, 2 good slaps across his jaw, and then he started throwing forearms, with them big old forearms Stan had, and he connected with those things. And I mean, connected as hard as he could swing. And if you look on my page, you'll see that little clip of the whole thing when Vader got his eye knocked out and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows it. I encourage you to look on there. It ain't but a few minutes long, but it'll show potatoes were flying. But yeah, I mean, Vader was the big dog over in New Japan for Noki at that time. And Stan, of course, was the big dog for Baba. And so they had that big match in the Tokyo Dome there, and they put them against each other, and Stan was going to hold his end of it up, and he did. And, if you watch that little clip, you'll say, damn, because, I mean, you could tell Stan was connected with them forearms.
Absolutely. I've seen it. I'm rolling. I'm jumping. Jimmy, hot tag.
Hot tag to Jimmy Street. All right, cool. Thank you for the hot tag. Can you bump and feed for me just once, Joel? I'm not asking for many, but just once.
Okay.
So
if it looks good, I'll sell it.
I will try to my best, So, the David Deaton, right? So the Thunderfoot gimmick that you had, I know you'd been working with David Deaton, and you took your last name from David, and y'all were the Deatons, and then you turned into the Thunderfoot gimmick, and Gene Ligon was your Thunderfoot too. Why wasn't he the second Thunderfoot?
Well, when we first came in the Mid-Atlantic in 83, David was a 300-pounder, and he was a 2-time heavyweight amateur wrestling state champion in high school in Georgia. Plus, he got a scholarship to Mississippi College in wrestling and football. And he never could, we'd go out there against our opponents, and, David being David, if he had to put somebody over, and they were smaller and weaker, or just he didn't think
he'd get, he just didn't want to put him over because he said, "What? Look at me, I'm fucking 300 pounds and I'm, bad." Why? They really missed out on somebody taking him. He could have been as big as Hanson, or the superstar and all them kind of type people. He was that good, and he was amazing on the microphone too.
Okay.
He had a really great gift of gab up for the microphone. But anyway, so we're in there in Carolinas, and he just got despondent. He just, I would do the job most of the time. We were in tags against whoever. And but when they started asking him to do the job and stuff, and, he said, "Fuck this. I ain't going out there, and put somebody over that I should be beating them, and really he should." So he just left. And he went back to Atlanta, and so I was, left there in Mid-Atlantic there by myself. So, they were using me underneath, but I was working every night. I was making decent money, and then Dusty, and I think 85, might have been the last 84, right after Buddy Landell came in, because Dusty called me in the office and he said, "Okay, we're going to give you a promotion." We said, "We're going to promote from within. We ain't bringing nobody else in." He told me about wanting me to get to do the old Infernos gimmick, which I didn't have a clue who the damn Infernos were. and I really didn't.
Yeah.
And anyway, he told me you get a built-up boot, and he even got up behind the desk and hopped around like he was loading his boot, and that's how you do it and stuff. And so, and then he gave me J.J. Dillon, to be my manager.
Yeah.
And so,
awesome.
So we ran with it for, I don't know, at least close to a year. And I was in a lot of semi-mains and some main events, and then Buddy Landell came in and we tagged a lot and stuff. But anyway,
watch the hair.
He eventually brought Gene in, because Gene was a good underneath hand too.
Right.
And he said, "Okay, I'm going to give you a partner, and I'm going to make him Thunderfoot too."
Okay.
And so that's when Gene came into the picture. And right after that, that's when they sent us out to Siberia.
Right.
Out there
to
Kansas City, where, me and him and Denny Brown and Sam Houston and Baby Doll and
Todd Champion,
Warlord and Scott Hall and all those green guys. We all went out there to Kansas City, which they didn't even try to draw no money out there. That damn, not Bob Geigo, he was out there, but he had that other guy, I think Bob Brown, somebody.
Yeah.
That was, he had, I guess Dusty was putting the matches together from Charlotte, but they weren't promoted really. And I mean, those trips out there were like 800 miles one way out there, way out there past Dodge City and Kansas, and on the other side, and you had to come all the way back from there to St. Louis, and then all these other little drop-offs around. Oh, Big Bubba Boss Man was out there with us too.
Yeah.
And Randy Anderson, the referee, and Rocky King, and so we had a decent crew out there.
I want you to. I got to stop you for a second, because you're saying Buddy Landell, and I love Buddy. I got to work with Buddy, and I just loved him, man. He was awesome. Talk about Buddy for a minute.
Well, Buddy was funny, man.
Yes, he was.
Buddy was funny. He used to like to, they get on that cocaine, and he liked to call up them prostitutes.
Yeah.
And I was living with a guy in Charlotte there. He wasn't a wrestler. He was just a regular guy, and I used to let him come over there and use my bedroom. And he'd bring them prostitutes over there, and they'd sit in there, and he'd be snorting cocaine all night with them. He couldn't get his dick hard, and you could hear him through the door, suck harder, all this kind of stuff. And he'd come out there with a grin on his face, and I just shook my head out. Buddy, you're a fucking idiot. Yeah. But anyway, Buddy
Buddy, he stayed in there. He did good. Him and Flair drew a little money.
He was a good wrestler, man, and he was just funny, man. He was a good wrestler. He was funny. I'd never forget, man. He always, every time I'd climb to the second rope to go to punch him or whatever. Watch the hair, brother. Watch the hair. He didn't want me to.
Yeah. He always had that damn combing his damn hair.
Yeah. That's funny stuff, man.
Buddy was a pretty good dude, man. He was, he kind of was his own worst enemy there for a while and kind of messed everything up for him, but.
Yeah.
But I like Buddy, and he was harmless. He was just, he just I don't know. He just got wild there for a while and didn't care after a while.
Yeah, no doubt. I got a question that's kind of out of the ordinary here because we've been talking about some different stuff, but I noticed something when I was researching you, Joel, and it was what happened between your partner Billy Black and Bill Behrens?
Well, first off, I went to a spot show here in Georgia, and I saw Billy working against somebody, and I was impressed by his work. He could do the moonsaults and spin kicks and stuff like that, and he, and so I thought, well, this dude might do pretty good in Japan, and I said, and so I asked him, did he want to go, and he said, yeah. So I hooked it up for him. I called Bob and got him booked. And anyway, we went over as a tag team. But with Bill Behrens, there was a show somewhere here in Georgia, and Bill Behrens was running a few shows, and I don't know what it was. See, Billy never worked the territory. Okay. He never knew really how the business worked and how, the political side of it. And whatever, I think it was about a payoff or something, and he got in an argument with Bill, and I wasn't there. I didn't see it or hear it, but I just know that's what happened. And I think he might have threatened Bill or something, but anyway. So, Bill didn't use him no more, I guess. And I tried to tutor Billy into, and he was, we brought him in as part of the clique, when he'd be on the tours with me over there. And we did well over there as a tag team, and Bobby used us pretty good. But anyway, Billy was he was one of those guys that anytime you're telling a story, he has always got something better. Most of the time, the stories were so outrageous that, we'd be in the back of the bus riding somewhere, and me and Doc and Terry, we'd just look at each other and smile and shake our head, knowing he was sitting there lying. But that was just Billy, and me and him aren't on good terms either after some shit that happened. I'm not gonna get into that right now, but anyway, we had a decent little. I think a couple of years we were tagged up over there, and Billy, he didn't like doing the jobs because they always beat him. They would never beat me. And as long as we were tagged, which it don't matter over in Japan, win, lose, or draw. If you give it a good fight out there, then people gonna cheer you whether you win, lose, whatever.
Yeah.
Because they respect, that if you're out there trying, they'll respect you.
Yeah.
And that's how I got over, really, along with pitching in that baseball game over there in the Tokyo Dome. Yeah. And then getting on the microphone, which none of the Gaijins or Americans ever did, interviews and stuff like that. But the Japanese guy that always did an interview after his match, Kimura, he would get on the mic and tell a little funny story or whatever to the people. And then he started calling me over and saying shit to me in Japanese. I didn't know what he was saying, but, I'd sell it, whatever, and people would laugh. And it was just, that was his gimmick.
Yeah.
And so when I went over and grabbed the microphone away from him and said something in Japanese back to him, the people, he sold it, and the people just laughed. They thought it was the funniest thing they ever heard. And so every time we worked together, and mostly it was a 6-man, And he'd get after the match. He'd go out there and get on that microphone and tell his little stories. Then he'd call me over there, and he'd tell me beforehand in the dressing room what to say back to him in Japanese. And so I would, and every time after he'd get through, and he'd call my name, Deaton, and I'd look at him, and people start chanting my name, and to go over and get the microphone and say something back to him. I mean, it really got over, and nobody, not even top guys, did stuff like that. Interviews, you never saw that. Rarely do you see interviews from Americans or Gaijins, foreigners over there on any of those matches. Yeah. But anyway, so that, also helped get me over. And, it was a combination of things, really. But I can really say that I'm proud of, what my time over there. And I think the people, they still remember me, even when I went back over there in 2019. Yeah. Right before I had my stroke, they were still right there with me.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Chanted my name and all that crap coming out. And
that's cool.
They remembered, man, and they respected. And I was really proud of that. But
yeah.
Let me ask you this, man. This is a huge question here. What are you the most proud of your wrestling career? What's if it's a story or if it's just whatever, what are you the most proud of, Joel?
Well, I'm most proud of being pretty much a nobody. Nobody's uncle, nobody's son, nobody's aunt, nobody's brother, nobody's cousin, nobody's nothing. And coming into the business, just somebody basically off the street. I mean, I had an athletic background, but I'm most proud of being able to work all the territories that I worked, and the bookers and owners having confidence enough in me to use me. And all those years, from Georgia Championship, Florida Championship, Mid-South, Southwest Texas, Tri-State out of Tulsa with Leroy McGuirk, and then Mid-Atlantic with the Crockett's for like 7 years, and then 10 years in Japan. Yeah. Just being thought of as by the people that count, that I was a good hand and I was worth giving a job to. And I was so blessed, man. I counted it up one time. It was like in the 20s of the world champions that I got to wrestle, from Harley Race to Dory Funk, Terry Funk. So, and being to be on tour, over there and get to know Harley and all those guys. And even I worked with Jack and Jerry Briscoe. I worked with, I just worked, gosh, I don't know.
You did. You worked with everybody, man. You worked with everybody.
With just about everybody that counted.
Absolutely.
And, during that, from the early 80s all the way up through the end of the 90s, I was working, full time before I.
So I gotta ask this though. And then I know I probably asked you this before. A hard question, man. Like you just said, Harley Race, the Briscoes, all this. Like, who was you in the ring with where you went, man? This motherfucker's good.
Well, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I gotta say that you asked me. I think this before the last part one, and after I thought about it, you asked me what was my most memorable match, and I think I said Tenryu and Hara, but really it was when I wrestled Andre the Giant, Antonio Inoki, me and David in a tag match and that's on YouTube, in a tag match over in Honolulu. Yeah, and that was the first time I ever met Andre or Inoki. Yeah. We were just put out there, Lars was doing the booking over there, Lars Anderson. And so, of course, he's who trained us. So he put us out there against Andre and Inoki,
Yeah.
And we had a good match with them. Andre sold for us, and it was really, really memorable. And so that has to be up there on. And
that had to be cool, though. Honestly, think about it, man. I mean, fuck. I haven't seen the match or whatever, but you punched him. He sold it. You know what I mean? Andre the Giant. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, and then me and Dick Slater were tagged up against Andre and Giant Baba in the tag team tournament over in Japan.
Yeah.
We was out there with the two giants of the wrestling world.
Yeah.
Giant Baba and Andre the Giant. That's got to count for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people got to do that?
Absolutely, man. You're Joel, I love talking to you, man. It's serious, man. It's awesome. It really is.
Well, I have a good time talking and reminiscing to y'all too, and I got, I know I got a lot of more stories, and stuff. And one funny one real quick was when
you keep going. Yeah.
Me and Dickie, we were working there for Jim Crockett in Mid-Atlantic, and we worked Myrtle Beach one night. Actually, it was Conway, South Carolina, about 20 miles from Myrtle Beach. And so me and Dickie had a little Porsche 911, and so we were going back to Charlotte. And when on the way back, he had to pass that town, Darlington, where they used to have the Darlington 500, the NASCAR.
Yeah.
And this was on a Saturday night, and we went, but they had the lights on and everything at the racetrack, and so Dickie, he pulls in through the gates and goes down, and he pulls down through the tunnel and comes out on the track and puts that damn Porsche in first and kicked it. And I mean, we started going around that track, man. We were doing about 130, 40, whatever that Porsche would do. And then people were running out on the track, waving us off. No. And all this thing. And so we made about 5 laps around that big Darlington 500 racetrack. And then he come around that last time and he shot back through the tunnel and back out on the road. And down the road we went. We didn't get but about 2 or 3 miles, and there was blue lights everywhere. And so they stopped us and pulled us over, and then they come up, and they recognized Dickie. They didn't know who I was, but and everything. And so, what? And the cop was like, "What in the hell?" And Dickie was just saying, "Well, he lied, said something about it. He knew one of the race car drivers. He was driving over to see him or something." So the cops didn't do nothing. They let us go, but they just was out there shaking their head. And really, they were laughing.
Oh, that's funny.
And they let us go and everything.
That is so funny, man.
But that was a funny story with Dickie. There's another one where we went to Myrtle Beach one time where he was trying to find his ex-girlfriend who had a parrot, some kind of parrot. Byrd. and he was coming back to get his damn parrot.
Oh man,
anyway, that was another crazy story. But
tell it.
And then that time we're coming back from Miami on Alligator Alley, that old road that ran from Tampa to damn near to Miami.
Yeah.
There's nothing, absolutely nothing on that road. It's pitch black. And Wahoo was ahead of us in the car with, I think, Coco Samoa. And me and Hoss and Jim Kent. I don't know if you remember him. He used to manage. He wasn't a real big guy, but his name was Jim Kent. We were all, behind him. And Wahoo stopped to get out and piss or something. And then we come pulling up behind him on the side of the road there, and there was about a 4 or 5 foot alligator creeping across it wasn't a 2-lane road. It wasn't no highway or nothing. And I mean, this road was about 400 miles long. We had to go up and down, going from Tampa to Miami and Miami back. But anyway, Wahoo pounced on that alligator and reached around and got that alligator in the front face lock.
What?
Yeah, so he couldn't open his mouth and bite him. He had him around in the front face lock.
Wahoo McDaniel.
And that alligator was damn squirming to get away, and Wahoo was trying to hold on to him. And that alligator, he got on the other side of the road, and he was going down in the ditch trying to get away from him. Wahoo grabbed his tail, and that alligator was giving it everything he had to get away and get loose from Wahoo. He had him by the tail.
Wahoo McDaniel alligator.
He pulled Wahoo down in that ditch with about 3.5 to 4 foot water Wahoo was up to his waist in water, and before he finally let that damn alligator go.
Oh my God.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was the damnedest thing I ever seen, you know. And Wahoo, he was the one that gave me and David Hoss, well, I call him Hoss, gave us our first break out there in Southwest Texas Championship Wrestling for Joe Blanchard, Tully Blanchard's daddy out there in San Antonio. Wahoo brought us out there after he saw one of our matches for Ole on Channel 17 Saturday morning TV. He was impressed with us. We were young and athletic, big, and he was just taking the book over out there, and he invited told us to come out there. And when we got out there, you know, we stayed with him in his apartment for a while. Then we went and stayed with Tully for a while, and that's another story. Then that hell of a story that happened down at Del Rio, Texas, right there on the border. Did I tell that last time about prostitutes?
I don't think so.
Was it with Buddy Landell?
No, it was,
okay.
It was me and Hoss and half the crew. After we wrestled in Del Rio, we all went over across the Rio Grande there into this little town they call Boys Town. It's just like the old Western Matt Dillon type dirt roads, and they had bars on each side of the road. It's just one road you drive through. And anyway, long story short, we got in there. Me and Tully and David Hoss were sitting there drinking a beer, and these prostitutes are coming up. They're sitting down in our laps, feeling all over us. Oh, and, you know, likey, and all that kind of shit. And so David, you know, they wanted $20 or something. So David gets up, and he goes out behind the place in some little camper or something back there. And then Hale said, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it. So we took just enough money over there with us to have a few beers. We left the rest of our money in the car parked on the American side of the Rio Grande. And so we, you know, we took just enough money, you know, to have a little fun, and then we come back, get a cab back to the border, and then walk across that bridge, across the Rio Grande back to where our car was parked, and go back to San Antonio. So anyway, me and Tully are sitting in there, and we done drank up just about all our money that we had brought over there with us, and I done spent my little $20 on some little young prostitute took me back there. But I just got the standard, fuck, and you know, I wasn't but like 22 years old, and so so I came back in the bar and sat down, and me and Tully are sitting there. Well, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Where is Hoss? You know, what's going on? Where's Hall? We're ready to go. And then he comes stumbling in there, smiling, big old grin on his face. And he comes over at the table we at, standing there. And that little prostitute comes up behind him and starts saying, my money, you know, give me my money, give me my money, you know, give me my money, you know. I mean, we're like, and so David's like, hey, you know, y'all got any money? No, we done drank it all, sitting there waiting on your dumb ass. You know, and so that girl, she's getting louder about it, and so it scared Tully. He's a chicken shit anyway. So he's the first one to get up, and he starts going to the door, and all these Mexicans that are in this little bar we're in, you know, those are their girls in there working, trying to make money selling pussy, you know. And so, you know, we get about halfway to the door, and Tully's, you know, first one out. And that girl's hanging on David, screaming about her money. So David takes both her hands and snatches them off of his chest that she had a hold to his shirt, and he slams her in the floor. Oh, shit. And next thing I know, see, he had took that girl around back there, and instead of getting just a standard fuck, he wanted to get around the world, you know, the sucky, fucky, ass fucking, I guess, every damn thing else. And so for everything extra she was doing for him, she was charging him for it.
Oh man!
And the bill was running up and up and up. And so when he come out there, we didn't have no money. She got pissed. And so anyway, we made it out the door. And all of a sudden, these Mexicans come piling out that door, and one of them swung and hit me in the back. I thought for sure we was supposed to get stabbed or shot. Oh my God! These Mexicans, they were little, And we were pretty good, big guys, and we were fighting them off. I was knocking them off left and right, and Tully run around and jumped in a cab, and David fought his way around and got in the car, and I was the last one left out there fighting off them Mexicans. I didn't do nothing, but I was the last one out there fighting them, and finally I dove through the back window. And David told that cab driver, take off and get us to the border. And he reached up and he grabbed that cab driver by the back of the neck. And he said, if you don't take us straight to the border, if you try to take us around and down one of these alleys where somebody's waiting on us or whatever, I'm going to break your neck. Do you understand that? Capasso? Capasso, do you understand? And so, he started driving toward the border, and here's 2 or 3 other cars behind us, and then the cops, the policios, whatever they call them, they're behind the 3 or 4 other cars with their lights on. We were hauling ass up to the border and come to a screeching halt, dust flying everywhere. We got out, and the cops come up there, and they were trying to talk to us, and then, I had that girl in the car, too. He owes me money, blah, blah, blah. So, Tully got the cop to agree to let him walk across the border to the car and get I don't know, it wasn't much, $20, $30, whatever it was. This is back in really 79. And take the money and give to that girl where she'd be satisfied. And once we did that, then everything was fine. And the cop said, okay, y'all can go.
Wow.
And so we went across, and got in the car, and then rode back to San Antonio. And God Almighty was lucky, but didn't get shot or stabbed or something.
No.
David's crazy ass. He couldn't have the standard deal. He had to have the whole works,
That is hilarious.
And, that's just another story separate of that happened in Puerto Rico. And God Almighty, really lucky we didn't get killed over there with that. But so they, when we went to the ring over there, they throw spark plugs.
Oh yeah, I've been
damn bolts and fill cans up with rocks and throw them. And some of them had slingshots.
Yeah.
Golly.
I remember.
They didn't even have ringside over there.
Nope.
That was just too dangerous. They didn't even have ringside. But anyway,
they come chasing after us. I got a few stories about that, man. Absolutely. It has been a hilarious and fun-filled episode, man. Jimmy, tell Joel thank you.
Thank you so much, Outlaw Joel Deaton. You're the best, brother. You always are, man. We've got to do a part 3. I mean, normally we wait a minute to announce that we're going to end up doing a part 3 or 2 or whatever, but I think we got to call it on this one, man. We got to get you back on a part 3, Joel. You're the best.
It's funny as hell, man.
Well, brothers, I appreciate y'all having me on. I appreciate all your listeners that listen. I'm 40-some years in the business. I got a bunch of more stories I can tell. I swear on my life that everything I love, that I ain't lying about nothing. I'm telling y'all, everything has happened the way I just told it.
I believe you 100%.
And it's funny as shit, man. And absolutely one of my favorite guests that I've had on. And honestly, Joel, I talk to you on the side, man. One of my favorite people that I've gotten to know, man. And I really appreciate you. And you're a good dude, man. I love you to death.
Well, thank you, Wolfie. I love you too, man. I'm glad that we got to getting to know each other, and because I'm stuck over here in this ghetto place. Yeah. And I'm trying my best to get out of here, but somehow, God willing, I will. But
yeah.
And I'm still trying to get better with my walking and stuff. But other than that, thank you guys for having me on. Thank you again on the listeners that tune in. These guys, they have great people on, and it's a privilege for me, for me to to at least get out here and have a little fun and reminisce and remember some of the old and crazy times I did have in the crazy
Absolutely,
world.
man. You got some great stories, bro. You absolutely do. We love it.
Seriously, we love it. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joel. Really.
All right, man.
right.
And Joel, I'll holler back at you.
Thank you, Joel. You're the best.
All right. Thank you guys again.
This has been a James Rock Street production.